now.
Oh, yeah, just me doing me, man.
Kind of sharp, that's insane. Belly bush. What a pleasure. Another compliment. There she is. Hey guys, how are you? Let's do it. The Lindsay Clancy trial is underway in Boston. Judge Sullivan about to come out and give some order of proceeding. There's Big Red in a dark suit. Can't see the color of tie. There's Lindsay. She's at the table.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable William Sullivan, Justice of the Superior Court, now sitting in Plymouth within the floor of the Commonwealth.
Oh,
Draw
boy.
near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard.
Unannounced. We weren't planning on doing this, guys. So
Please be seated.
the usual time is noon Eastern,
Good
9
morning, Your Honor.
Pacific,
May I
but
proceed?
Yes,
text your
Your Honor,
friends,
before
let
the
them
court
know.
today, we have the continuation
Here
of
we
the
go.
jury trial in the matter of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. Ms. Clancy is present. She is represented by
this
Attorney
woman.
Kevin Reddington. The Commonwealth is represented by Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague and Assistant District Attorney Shannon Buckingham.
I'm such a sucker for a
Thank you,
woman
Madam Clerk.
in a
Well, good morning, everyone. All right. Well, you know how
With a
we're going to
Boston
start this?
accent.
I'm going to ask you those questions. And just in case you're wondering, does this podium up here mean that I'm going to talk to you for quite a while this morning? It does. All right. So first, let me ask you the questions. Has any member of the jury read, seen, heard, or overheard anything from any source about any aspect of this case that would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror? Secondly, is there any other matter or concern bearing on your service as a juror in this case that anybody needs to bring to my attention at this time? All right. Again, as I've said for weeks now, thank you for following those instructions. And so where we are now in the process is, I just want to explain a little bit to you. We're going to do what we call the arguments in charge. All right. And that just means I'm going to give the charge as my instructions. All right. I'm going to instruct you on the law that you are to apply in this case to the
Look at
facts
Big Red.
that you're going to find.
My
And
guy.
then the argument part is we're going to hear the closing arguments from the attorneys. And the way we do it, the way I do it is I kind of split it up. So I'm going to give you first half of my instructions. We'll talk a little bit about the specific charges in this case. And then after the closing arguments, I'll come back
Big Red.
and give you
Look
some
at
more
him.
general instructions
Holy
about how
mackerel.
you, the burdens of proof and how you are to go forward and do your deliberations and handle the deliberations. All right. So they take a while. All right. And they can be, well, they can't, I was going to say rather dry, but they are dry. And so what the parties and myself have agreed to do is I'm going to we printed out the instructions that I'm going to read to you. So you'll have those with you, all right, as we go through this morning. And so some people find that helpful to read along and comprehend. Some people don't. So if it's distraction, you don't have to read it. But some people find it helpful, so we thought we'd do that. You also should know that you'll have these instructions. You can bring these with you in the deliberations. So you'll have this whole outline of what the law is so that you are to apply. All right. So at this point, if we could hand out the copies of the instructions. Oh, you already have those? Oh, geez. I forget how efficient our court officers here are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the instructions now. All right. So my instructions on the law are going to be delivered to you in two phases. As I said, first, I'm going to instruct you on the specific indictments that have been brought against Ms. Clancy. After I conclude my instructions regarding the charges, the Assistant District Attorney, Ms. Sprague, and Attorney Reddington will each deliver their closing argument. Remember, the arguments of counsel are not themselves evidence. They're provided to assist you in organizing and understanding the evidence that's been presented during the trial and the conclusions that each party would like you to draw from that evidence. At the conclusion of the attorney's closing arguments, I'll give you the second part of my jury instructions. And in that phase, I will go over a number of very important principles that will guide your overall evaluation of the evidence, your deliberations, and your eventual verdicts. The instructions are to be taken and considered in whole. All right, so the first and second part are equally important. So you to consider all my instructions as a whole. You'll notice, as I said, I'm reading these instructions to you. Excuse me. I apologize for doing that, but I have to give these instructions clearly and accurately. So as I said, to assist you in your deliberations, I provided you with written copies of these instructions. However, those written instructions are not a substitute for the oral instructions I'm giving now. So please listen carefully. All of my instructions are equally important. You're not to overemphasize one portion of these instructions or ignore other portions. These charges have specific factual elements that the Commonwealth must establish beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'll review those elements with you in detail at this time. Now remember that the law presumes the defendant to be innocent.
So anyway, I'm bringing him down for a minute. Sorry, my volume was off. It's, yeah, I don't do this very often. And, but anyway, Billy Sullivan's giving the orders. We can take a break from that for a second. Our friend Peter Murphy's sergeant in the Canton Police Department in Massachusetts. We've had him on a bunch of times. He grew up across the street from Billy Sullivan as little kids, you know, in the area. So he's going to hopefully join us in a little while and tell us about the judge. But I get a feeling he's got a real connection with Kevin Reddington. You know what I mean? Yesterday I was joking that he kind of checks with Reddington when there's, you know, I think we're going to take a recess here. Should we take a recess? And he looks over at Red, and Red nods, and he's like, okay, let's do it. How long do you need for closing? Red goes, half hour. I mean, it's just beautiful. And I think the prosecution's like hour and a half. He's giving everybody an hour, I guess. I don't know if Red's going to use it. Here's a tight shot of Kevin Reddington right now. Look at him. He's in the dark suit. He wore the green tie yesterday. Anyway, pretty cool. So we're getting our instructions right now. Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 reporting on the case for the entire trial. She wearing a green blazer yesterday. Interesting. And Big Red was wearing a green tie. Is it a little nod to the Irish Catholic jury? Maybe the girl in the green dress who was in the courtroom, whom I vehemently defended yesterday. So everything's coming down to the closing today. Dr. Gregory Satoff, the forensic psychologist who was the last rebuttal witness to testify, it was his opinion that Lindsay was criminally responsible. He didn't interview her, however, until 3 years after the fact in April of 2026, nor did he evaluate her until then. He claimed that she could understand right from wrong then, even though it was 3 years later that he's talking to her. He said command performances do not automatically propel a person to obey them. And when Reddington had a chance to cross-examine, he read aloud word for word from the prosecution's opening statement. When she saw the opportunity to escape, she made the selfish choice to take Cora Dawson and Callan first before attempting to take her own life. And Big Red asked Dr. Satoff what he thought about that line. I'll read it again. When she saw the opportunity to escape, she made the selfish choice to take Cora Dawson and Callan first before attempting to take her own life. And Dr. Satoff conceded that he thought it minimized what she was going through. Reddington made a motion asking the judge to dismiss the murder charges altogether. That motion was denied. He also asked that involuntary manslaughter be added as an option. That was also denied. So the jury is going to consider first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter as well. The prosecution objected to including manslaughter And anyway, over the last week, 5 doctors have testified, 2 for the defense, 3 for the prosecution. Amazingly, each shared their diagnosis of Lindsay. For the defense, Philip Resnick called her bipolar 2. Paul Zeisel called her bipolar and postpartum psychosis. The prosecution, Avram Mack, the absolute nemesis of Kevin Reddington, said major depressive disorder. Kirk Heilbrunn called it bipolar, and Gregory Satoff bipolar 2. So all over the map. Each of these guys, experts in various mental illnesses. Obviously, none of the 5 are experts in postpartum related illness, except Gregory Satoff. He has seen postpartum psychosis patients. The others, like Kirk Heilbrunn, not for 44 years. All 5 doctors gave their perspective on it. And the question is, how's the jury going to decide? They'll get instructions today. It's in their hands. It's day 22. It's closing arguments. And the jury will decide whether Lindsay Clancy is criminally responsible for killing her 3 children, or whether postpartum psychosis meant she lacked criminal responsibility. So the jury faces the options: first-degree murder involving deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity, and with the option to consider lesser manslaughter charges or a not guilty verdict finding based on lack of criminal responsibility. So here we go. That's that. Back to the trial.
Petition the court to commit the defendant to a mental health facility or to Bridgewater State Hospital. If the court concludes that the defendant is mentally ill and that her discharge would create a substantial likelihood of serious harm to herself or others, then the court will grant the petition and commit the defendant to a proper mental health facility or to Bridgewater State Hospital.
There you go.
Periodically, the court reviews the order of commitment. If the defendant is still suffering from mental disease or defect and is still dangerous, then the court will order the defendant to continue to be committed to the mental health facility or to Bridgewater State Hospital. There is no limit to the number of such renewed orders of commitment as long as the defendant continues to be mentally ill and dangerous. If these conditions do continue, the defendant may remain committed for the duration of her life. If at some point the defendant is no longer mentally ill and dangerous, the court will order her discharged from the mental health facility or from Bridgewater State Hospital after a hearing.
Yeah.
The district attorney must be notified of any hearing concerning whether the person may be released, and the district attorney may be heard at any such hearing. However, the final decision on whether to recommit or release the defendant is always made by the court.
Come on.
Now, I'm going to go over at this point the specific elements of the charges against Ms. Clancy. So I want to talk first about murder in the first degree. The defendant is charged with 3 separate indictments charging murder, 1 count each relating to Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and Callan Clancy. The instructions I'm going to give now apply to each separate indictment relating to each child. There are 2 different degrees of murder. There's murder in the first degree.
That's a good point. It's one of those cases that makes you just question everything. Who are you? Who are we? What do we believe?
The degree of murder.
I'm with you on that.
The Commonwealth alleges that the defendant committed murder in the first degree on the following theories. First, that it was murder with deliberate premeditation. And then second, and or it was murder with extreme atrocity or cruelty. To find the defendant guilty on any of these theories of murder, you must be unanimous. That is, all of the deliberating jurors must agree that the Commonwealth has met its burden of proving every required element of that theory beyond a reasonable doubt. You should check the appropriate box or boxes on the verdict slip as to each theory of which you agree unanimously. And I'll go over a little bit later the verdict slip and how that is going to be handled. Now, so if you're unable to agree unanimously that the Commonwealth has met its burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt either of these theories of first-degree murder, you shall consider whether the Commonwealth has proved the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murder in the second degree.
Are you guys looking at Kevin Reddington? Do you see? He's like, I can't decide if he's going over his notes or he's saying, "Will you just get on with it, Billy, and let me get up there and do my thing?" He looks. What would you? How would you describe his look right now?
In the first degree with deliberate premeditation. To prove the defendant guilty of murder
Contemplative?
in the first degree with deliberate premeditation, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt the following elements. 1, the defendant caused the death of Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and/or Allan Clancy. 2, the defendant intended to.
I think deliberation, I think, will take the better part of Friday. I think they'll go back and forth. I think there'll be a verdict on Monday. And one of our great friends and defense attorneys agrees with me. The great Allan Jackson. We were just chit-chatting about it. He said he thinks Monday, if he had to guess. Pensive is what Kathy says about our guy Kevin Reddington right now. Yeah, I think he's getting ready for his big. This is his Super Bowl. He's getting ready for it. He's ramping up. It all has led to this. He's been great so far. He needs to be perfect today.
And a natural and continuous sequence results in death, without which death would not have occurred. The second element is that the defendant intended to kill Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and/or Allan Clancy. That is, the defendant consciously and purposefully intended to cause the death. The third element is that the defendant committed the killing with deliberate premeditation. That is, she decided to kill after a period of reflection. Deliberate premeditation does not require any particular length of time of reflection. A decision to kill may be formed over a period of days, hours, or even seconds. The key is the sequence of the thought process. And it would be first, the consideration whether to kill, second, the decision to kill, and third, the killing arising from that decision.
Yeah.
There is no deliberate premeditation where the action is taken so quickly that a defendant takes no time.
Take a look around
to
the room. It's
reflect
kind
on
of
the
crazy. All
action
those
and
posters.
then
You're
to
right.
decide
What
to
in the
do it.
world are we looking at? That is
In
some messy
deciding
courtroom.
whether the defendant intended to kill the deceased and whether she formed that intent with deliberate premeditation, you may consider any credible evidence that the defendant
Mince.
suffered from a
Oh my
mental
God.
impairment or was affected by her consumption of prescription drugs.
Look at this. Yeah, look at all the pills in front of Lindsay. What are those? Yeah, that's a pile of mints or vitamins, or I can tell you one thing, we've had enough prescription.
Those are mints, Billy. I saw Big Red hand them to her the other day. It's like cinnamon Altoids or something like that.
Cinnamon Altoid is a good call, although
That's what I
it does
think.
look, yeah, that looks like a cinnamon Altoid.
I can
Many
tell you
of
what. I can tell you what they're not. They're not meds.
They're not meds after all that we've been through. Interesting comments while we wait. There's too much talk from the judge right now. I want to talk to you guys. She's clearly mentally ill. Those who think she did this out of malice, off. Billy, you're my new star. I like your coverage of it all. Thank you. There's a comment earlier that, I like this. Here, I got it, Harry. Red is suffering too, emotionally invested as well. This is important. Sunshine. Absolutely. The best thing we could do now is honor the loss of these kids. To honor the loss of these kids is overhaul our mental health system because it's broken. I couldn't agree more. I think when I was having a conversation with Dr. Drew yesterday, we'll put that conversation up later today, but Dr. Drew was telling me, how he thought this thing would end up. And he said he was predicting about 40% will think she's lacks criminal responsibility. Will that lead to a hung jury? Perhaps. But I am predicting a divide on the jury. Certainly feels that way. They're going to have to do some quick and fast and convincing deliberation. But I hope that the verdict is that she lacks criminal responsibility. And I know a lot of men don't agree with me, but the reason is whether she's in a state psychiatric hospital or whether she's in jail for the rest of her life, I've said this before, she is in jail, period. Her life is destroyed. And to me, what's really on trial here is our psychiatric field in America, the whole medical system, the whole process, and as Dr. Drew put it, this lack of primary care physician as quarterback in people's lives. What happened? I used to have a doctor, and I have one now, but I pay extra. You know what I mean? I can afford having a guy that is my quarterback, but I pay him extra. He doesn't come with my plan. The concierge vibe here in Los Angeles, no offense, I ran into him last night. He's like, that's a martini in front of you. I said, you work for me, guy. Zip it. But that's what's missing here. And Dr. Drew predicted this years ago. We're going to have less primary care physician at quarterback in people's lives. And look what happens. Nobody's on the same damn page. So really what's on trial for me is the system. And if Lindsay can be is harbinger a good word for that? Or if she can be the catalyst for major change, then that is one silver lining for a woman whose life is totally and completely destroyed by taking the lives of her children, whom she definitely loved and was completely out of her mind. Couldn't Karen Less says, I had audible hallucinations while on an antipsychotic after a breakdown. It's terrifying. Oh, no. Thankful that they were my children's voices. Okay, so they were benign hallucinations. Nothing telling you to do something terrible. Scary space to be in. Yeah. Here's a comment from Eddie Veronica. Liza, must be your kids. She clearly killed her children and must take responsibility for it. Some people who commit horrific crime have some degree of mental disorder. Oh, yeah, for sure. That doesn't mean they are legally insane. Well, another part of my conversation with Dr. Drew was everybody who commits some type of murder has some type of mental disorder. You just don't do that. The only difference is a serial killer who's on death row, or some other type of murderer is, didn't reach out for help and check themselves into the hospital and stay for 5 days and call a suicide hotline and do everything. Cry out for help, send texts to their mother saying, help me, I need you to come be with me. I feel like I might run down the street and murder again. No, they don't have that. She did. And our system, because we don't have a primary care physician at quarterback, is broken and couldn't help her. That's my feeling. All right, back to Big Red here for a second. Keep your comments rolling. It's a big day today.
Actions in terms of the manner and means of inflicting death and on the resulting effect on the deceased. In deciding whether the Commonwealth has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant caused the death with extreme atrocity or cruelty, you must consider the following factors. 1, whether the defendant was indifferent to or took pleasure in the suffering of the deceased. 2, whether the defendant's method or means of killing was reasonably likely to substantially increase or prolong the conscious suffering of the deceased. Or 3, whether the means used by the defendant were excessive and out of proportion to what would be needed to kill a person. In considering whether the means used by the defendant were excessive and out of proportion to what would be needed to kill a person, you may consider A, the extent of the injuries to the deceased, B, the number of blows delivered, C, the manner, degree, and severity of the force used, and D, the nature of the weapon, instrument, or method used. You cannot make a finding of extreme atrocity or cruelty unless it is based on one or more of the factors that I just listed. You may consider the defendant's mental condition at the time of the killing, including any credible evidence of mental impairment or the effect on the defendant of her consumption of prescription drugs in determining whether the Commonwealth has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the killings with extreme atrocity or cruelty. A defendant may have committed the killing with extreme atrocity or cruelty, even if she suffered from a mental impairment or consumed prescription drugs, but you may consider such evidence in determining whether the Commonwealth has proved this element. Now I want to talk about murder in the second degree. In order to prove murder in the
Dr.
second
Paul
degree,
Zizell. Oh,
the
look at the
Commonwealth
crowd
must
right
prove
there.
the following elements.
There they
One,
are. There's Lindsay's mother right there, sitting next to Dr. Paul Zizell. So they've obviously gotten to know each other. There's Paula Musgrove. I think said Paula, right? Her mother?
intended to cause grievous bodily harm to Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and or Callan Clancy. Or C, intended to do an act which in the circumstances known to the defendant, a reasonable person would have known created a plain and strong likelihood that death would result. The requirements of proof for murder in the second degree are the same as for murder in the first degree with extreme atrocity or cruelty, but without the element that the killing was committed with extreme atrocity. All right. And I discussed those elements earlier when I discussed the charge or the theory of first degree murder committed with extreme atrocity or cruelty. So they're listed in that other section. All right. Now, I want to talk about manslaughter. If you find that the Commonwealth has not proven the charges of first degree or second degree murder, you shall consider the lesser offense of manslaughter. Now, manslaughter is an unlawful killing unintentionally caused by wanton or reckless conduct. Wanton or reckless conduct is intentional conduct that creates a high degree of likelihood that substantial harm will result to another person. An omission or failure to act may constitute wanton or reckless conduct only where the defendant has a duty to act. To prove that the defendant is guilty of manslaughter because of wanton or reckless conduct, the Commonwealth must prove the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. One, that the defendant caused the death of Cora, Dawson, and or Callan Clancy. Two, that the defendant intended the conduct that caused the death of Cora, Dawson, and or Callan Clancy. And three, that the defendant's conduct was wanton or reckless. I'll now discuss each element in more detail. The first element is that the defendant caused the death of Cora, Dawson, and or Callan Clancy. As I've said before,
I agree right there. Look at that comment. Within her extremely unwell mind, she may have known she was unaliving her babies, but she was compelled by her total lack of mental capacity to control herself. She was absolutely over-medicated. I do. Billy, hot Billy forever. Now, this is a good account here. You'd think I was sending this. You know, it's me operating it from another hand. Billy, you support Lindsay's friend Brittany. I do. I support human flaw. I support the idea of who are we, pearl-clutching Protestants, to lament and then destroy a person for what would be a human flaw, for something we all do, right? We all laugh at the wrong time. We all do something weird occasionally, like, what the fuck? What was that? Hey, and you can't take a moment back. She didn't, that camera was coming around. Ricky, the cameraman, she knows from Court TV. She knows all these people in there. I happened to learn the backstory of what she was smiling at, and it was something silly between her, the cameraman, and two other reporters. She's a wonderful writer. She's not a perfect person. I saw one of her Instagrams, and she seemed to have a little buzz on her, and, she was, but the escalating war on human flaws, I thought was over. I thought I was ground zero for it. I got destroyed. Destroyed. Almost, I had SI. I mean, this guy I thought was built, strong as an ox. Down I came all the way to the stuff. For what? I'm going to talk to her. You're going to hear it. But Jesus Christ, man. Whoever wants her destroyed is like, get a life. Be human. There's my answer on that. Jeez, didn't expect to go there. Can't imagine the pain Lindsay's parents are experiencing too. Gut-wrenching to lose your grandchildren and watch your paralyzed daughter be torn apart by the prosecution and stand up for her. Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy. I'm getting another coffee. Let's say good morning to Harry this morning.
Good morning, Billy.
Met like this,
So let's get ready for this,
and I
buddy.
indicated to you that thank you for incredible service. And all of us mean that sincerely. You took literally more than a month out of your lives and sat here
Thank the jury.
attentively. Incredible. Through some of the toughest, most gut-wrenching things that any person can be subjected to. And I think I indicated that, sadly, jurors carry this trauma with them for years. And the service that you have performed, I have never seen before. You have listened to evidence. You have been fair. You have been objective. You've listened to the judge's instructions, and you've carried them into your heart, consistent with your oath, which is a very, very solemn oath. Passed between government and Lindsay, who has placed herself on her country, which country you are, as a jury of her peers. When you consider what's at stake here in the sense of what we've been dealing with, Cora, Dawson, Callan. She knows loss. And that's why we think Cora, Dawson, Callan. For a minute. They are the victims of this case. They are the victims of the horrible, horrific act that has been laid at your feet as jurors to decide whether or not Lindsay is guilty. Beyond a reasonable doubt, as His Honor instructed you and will instruct you, what that means, that standard of proof that we as citizens in this country are so blessed to have, proof beyond a reasonable doubt before the government charges any citizen with a crime. I don't care how many cops you have in here, how many DAs are sitting here, how many people are sitting in the front row, and they're all going to sit there and be proud of this prosecution. I told you in the opening statement that this is a prosecution that has ripped the soul out of this girl. This is what they had. This is their family. How does this turn into this? How? because of the damn medicine and the lousy medical care that she got. You can troop as many paid experts as you want to come in here and tell the jury, oh, well, she didn't say that she heard voices inside her head. She said she heard voices from outside her head. She said she was making chicken McNuggets. There was a bowl on the sofa. She wasn't making chicken McNuggets. She said something. As I think and I muse and I try real hard to tell you what my opinion is, that this woman was acting in her right mind when these children were killed. So, when you consider the evidence in this case, you consider the person who is in front of you, who is the defendant, as the government refers to her, and as His Honor will than likely tell you, even though a person is a defendant in our system of justice, you don't have to defend against anything. The government has the burden of proof. When the DA decides to charge someone with a crime, he has the burden of proof. His assistants have the burden of proof to prove, number one, that Lindsay is guilty of this offense beyond a reasonable doubt, and then prove, number two, that Lindsay, at the time, killed her children, was not suffering from a mental disease or defect that caused her to have a lack of substantial capacity to appreciate, to know, to realize that what was being done while she was in a psychosis. But we'll laugh about that. It's just another woman. I guess it's just going to make an excuse. She's depressed. GAD, general anxiety. Give her a couple of pills, she'll be all right. You know from looking at the objective evidence in this case, this young lady, believe me, I don't have many clients like that. This young lady did nothing wrong in her life. She was a nurse, a daughter, a wife, and a darn good mother. You can see from the objective evidence, you can see, and you'll have all the exhibits for you to look at, and you can see by looking at these photographs, which you will have in the jury room. You can see the Facebook postings. You can see what she indicates about, for example, I just randomly grabbed this one. A son, my prince, that they would have you think she killed him first, cruelly, because she didn't like him. That is repulsive. So she's living her life with Pat, her kids, having a great time that summer. Life is good. She had to go back to work. In an opening statement, I told you, I said, watch the evidence. Watch the manipulation. Because that's what this case was built upon originally, and how it developed as the case progressed until it's in front of you. And how does that happen? Well, in the very beginning, going all the way back to when the first 911 call that you had to suffer through was made, you could hear in the voice, Pat Clancy, the horror, what he had obviously experienced. You can see from the evidence that's before you, the injuries that she suffered. You will have in the jury room the exhibits that indicated the extent of the injuries from, I don't have to go through all of them, the extent of the injuries to slitting her throat, to slashing her wrists, throwing herself out a window, blood all over the bedroom floor,
Jesus.
window open, screen slashed. Oh no, screen wasn't slashed, my bad. That's what she thought. It's called a delusion. She was in a psychosis when she thought that. Probably right here, sitting here, believes that she slashed the screen. She didn't. It's objective evidence. And why did we spend almost a week showing you the extent and the severity of that suicide attempt? The reason that we had to do that is because they were arguing that it was a fake suicide. Dinky little cuts, no bleeding. She didn't mean to kill herself. She's going to throw herself out the window, I guess, and slide down the house. Remember that one hanging off of the window, sliding down the house, and Lindsay screwed up, and she hurt herself bad. You know that's not what happened. You know that she made, through the testimony of Dr. Velkovich, that she made a very, very significant suicide effort, slashing her wrist, slitting her throat. And isn't it interesting when you consider objective evidence? Googling slitting a throat, Googling suicide, Googling drugs, Googling side effects, Googling ketamine treatments, Googling all of these drugs, Googling the effects of Tufts medications, lorazepam, sertraline, hydroxyzine, lorazepam, buspirone, trazodone, fluoxetine, zolpidem, mirtazine, clonazepam, quetiapine, diazepam, quetiapine. It goes on and on and on and on and on. You have the chat, you have the...
And nobody running point on all of it.
And obviously, she wasn't consuming all of these at the same time, because one thing this kid did was try to do what she was supposed to do. She took the drugs as she was told to take them. She was religious in her obligations to take care of her health. She went to Dr. Tufts when she was a young lady living in a house with a husband and her babies, respected nurse, wife, friend, mother. Should have kept drinking, huh? That was a big deal, wasn't it? Remember that? We're just going to assassinate this young lady in every which way we can. Remember that evidence? I was concerned. She was drinking 5 drinks a day. She was worried about, you heard the evidence up to 2019. What are they talking about? She wasn't drinking while she had her kids. She wasn't drinking while she's breastfeeding. She would have a couple of beers with her friends. That's bad. Put that over in the bad pile. Right here. We spent all that time showing through Dr. Lapisada's testimony that this was a legitimate, dreadful, horrific suicide attempt. You think about this beautiful young girl throwing herself out a window. That's a quarter. I don't know if you have to play pool. I challenge you to tell this jury why we spent a week showing that she committed, as your witnesses
Counsel, address the jury, please.
said, their witnesses, serious suicide attempt. Remember that? Tried to kill herself. So now they'll back off on that and they'll agree. A serious suicide attempt. That's why I say, watch the evidence. Watch the manipulation. Remember the argument with the bands. She took the bands out of the bag, put the gloves on. Talks to Dr. Lapisada on the Zoom. slams the bands down out of the paper bag, does the movement of the bands and yells at Lapasada and says, wrapped. They were just wrapped. They weren't knotted because you gotta get Lindsay tightening the band, right? You gotta hold it. You gotta hold it for a minute. You gotta hold it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. That's why she needed the bands not knotted. And then she said, it's like this. And they sprang open. Remember that? Dr. Lapasada said, yeah, I saw what you did. And she walked away like if the glove won't fit moment. Quarter number 2. What did Patrick Clancy testify to? You heard his testimony. He indicated clearly, unequivocally, they were knotted around the necks of those children to the point where he had to struggle. And it's your memory, not mine. If I say something you don't recall, forget it. It's what you remember the evidence to be. But clearly, I would suggest he struggled to get it off of Dawson's over his head. And a police officer saw through the window. It's horrific stuff, but it's objective and it shows the manipulation. This government, this prosecution is a mess. They would take their evidence and argue to you that she did not tie a knot and walk away because, as Dr. Lapasada said, you're talking about 4 or 5 seconds.
Look at these
If
two.
somebody passes out. No, they gotta have the 4 minutes. And that's not what the evidence shows, is it? So, as we move on, Lindsay's in the hospital. And this whole thing about conversations and she's talking to people and the kids are in the basement, her throat was crushed. You heard the 911 team. You draw the inference, whether or not there's a conversation about where the children are. Trying to kill myself, the kids are in the basement, all that. You determine whether or not that was something that could be discerned. And the police investigation, because as His Honor indicates, there are two things here. Number one, proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she's guilty. And number two, proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she was not suffering from a disease or defect, as His Honor instructed you at the time of these killings. Those are the two things they have to prove. And when the police charge somebody with a criminal offense, they have an obligation to investigate. At the end of the day, when you're talking about, well, we've got the charges are before the court, you can sit there in the court, you can feel proud of yourself. Do a good investigation. You even know what this, you'll see the photograph of the cup and the powder. What is it? They don't even analyze it. Did they take pictures? Did they analyze? Did they test the blood? Lousy investigation of this. Well, that's okay because she was guilty and they put her in the hospital and she's the evil woman who killed the 3 innocent kids. And they're going to stand there while she's chained to the bed, paralyzed. You heard testimony from Dr. Zeisel. They weren't little fluffy cuffs that were securing her to the bed. They were handcuffs, not the medical treatment. Medical treatment would be, like restraints, so you don't do whatever, pull lines out and things. We're talking about when the big men were in there with their guns and their badges and they're sitting outside the door, and they're gonna make sure that Lindsay Clancy, paralyzed, chained to the bed, doesn't get up and run away from the hospital, I guess. And they just have to suffer their way through, I guess I worked 8 hours, I had another shift, I had to work that night. This is the treatment. And what's important about that is what kind of treatment did this young lady get from the healthcare providers? Remember Meg Collins? She came in this court, Meg, you might remember. Tall woman, short blonde hair, squared away. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. She was not only a nurse taking care of her in the hospital, she advocated for her.
There you go.
She stood up for her patient. She protected her. During the pandemic, you know that Meg Collins was in that emergency room when half of us were hiding at home behind our computers, hoping that we're not going to die in a week, drinking our Chardonnay at 11 o'clock in the morning. Meg Collins was in a hospital treating people.
Invoking
and
the
advocating
morning
for them.
shard.
That's an example of what nursing is all about. Not having attitude, not treating somebody like they're to be disdained. And what's even worse, she comes out of a coma. She is intubated. She has had major surgery of her broken, crushed spine, vertebrae, rib, thyroid. Massive, not my words, medical records, massive testimony, blood transfusion for the blood loss. And when someone, you've heard evidence, comes out of surgery, they are delusional.
What's happened?
You've had anesthesia. You've had think about having your tooth pulled. Think about the trauma that somebody has when they're in a hospital bed laying there, paralyzed, unable to feel the lower half of their body, but able to feel with the meds and the pain medication and everything else, the damage to the spine. And then the hospital has a meeting. Remember the other doctor, I think it was Dr. Shah, the Indian woman? Wicked impressive. She was amazing.
Wicked impressive.
She had the facts.
I'm like
She
you.
was able to tell you exactly what she observed. She was able to tell you what they were doing to treat Lindsay. She treated her like a human being. She was a damn good doctor. Came in here and told you all of her observations about her and told you one of the things that ultimately that they were concerned about is they had to have this big confabulation about, we're going to take her off the, the healthcare process. They had to have lawyers. They had to have people there. They had to have her signing documents. They had to determine whether or not she was going to be signing something to have her parents take over because Pat was not going to be responsible for her care. Lawyers, cops, handcuffs. Do I need a lawyer? Write that down. Where are you? You're out there somewhere. Write that down. Boy, she wanted a lawyer. That's a bad thing. Must be guilty. Let's put that in the guilty pile. That's why she said that in a delirious state, dealing with all of these people about that issue. But what's even more nefarious, you think about it, as I said, your eye on the ball because of the manipulation. Paul Zeisel, big deal. I'm friends with the guy. You heard evidence that I called him. I was with Pat a night or two after this incident in the bedroom with all the blood. I was with Pat taking evidence that the police didn't even see in their thorough investigation. And I was able, as you know now, certainly, to grab this. Why wouldn't the police have grabbed this? They're all empty. You can see when they were prescribed. You can see what they are. You can see what she took. You read the testimony. It's tough to take a handful of pills. Remember the guy saying that yesterday? Tough to take a handful of pills. Well, no, they were crushed. Oh, shit, they were crushed. Okay. Where's the residue? Where's the crusher? Where's anything? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Great investigation, guys. So you have a situation where they leave this behind. They don't even look at one of them, and again, your memory, not mine. One of them testifies, well, they might have looked at it and saw it and just didn't seize it. Seriously? They go down to the kitchen, they seized every pill bottle that was in the cabinet, along with the books. And speaking of books, one of the things that they found, oh, smoking gun. Good moms have scary thoughts. Hallelujah. Put that in the guilty pile. We're going to put this in a plastic bag. We're going to show it to a jury so they know that this young lady had scary thoughts. Turns out that Jolata gave it to her.
Jeez, that's good.
So you have
God.
this evidence. You have evidence of sleep aids. You have evidence in the bag.
Oh,
Because obviously this stuff was just thrown in there. It
so many
wasn't
good
in a bag
visuals.
When I saw it inside this thing here and we seized it, and we held it for 3.5 years. Anybody care about it? No. You had evidence that police knew that I had it. They could have it, they could look at it, they could analyze it, do whatever they wanted. They didn't have to. This here, you heard evidence. This is a little wish jar that they bought on their honeymoon in Hawaii many years prior to even having kids. And when you look inside it, you see that there's all sorts of little folded up pieces of paper. Some of them are dated, some of them aren't. They go all the way back to 2017, 2018, 20. And they reference her wishes to have healthy kids, her wishes for her kids to be successful, her wishes to have a good birth. Second time around, hoping for a good birth, worrying about the child with I forget, where they rub the thing like. This woman lived for her kids until she had the pleasure running into Dr. Tufts of her 2 months experience. And after she ran into Dr. Tufts, it was not a wonderful life anymore. And what did Dr. Tufts do? And everybody laughs at me. I said the television. Okay, I know it's a telemedical thing on your telephone or on a Zoom.
Good point.
Take more pills. You have the medical records. You heard the testimony. You know her concerns. You know her fears. Does this seem like a young lady that didn't care and wanted to score more drugs off somebody? That's another repulsive allegation. I think the evidence is pretty clear. There's no basis for that at all. She was scared. September into October of 22, young, vibrant, hardworking. You've heard all this, not my words, witnesses' words, holding goals for herself. Hardworking nurse, hardworking mother, would take the kids to the Kingsbury Club. That's another thing. Sounds pretty snooty, doesn't it? Oh, they're at the Kingsbury Club. It's a swimming pool and a place where you can exercise. Watch the manipulation. Because now you've got a situation where you've got manipulation with the Kingsbury Club, you've got manipulation with these other items here, and you've also got manipulation of Paul Zeisel told Lindsay what to say. Say that you're hearing voices. Think about how ugly that is. Because you know, beyond a reasonable doubt, even though we don't have any proof, we have no
He's
burden.
diminishing the prosecution before they take
You
the
heard from Sheila. Remember
the
Sheila,
lectern.
the woman that's the reverend or whatever, she's the chaplain at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. She didn't know Lindsay from anybody that night when she came in all broken up. And she told you that she continued. She was there when Lindsay came out of, was extubated. She was there when Lindsay was going through her treatments. She was there for 8 days before Paul Zeisel even knew Lindsay existed. But they would be in here telling you that Lindsay saw the psychologist because the lawyer went and got the psychologist to go and speak to her. And then you have these guys here, the cops. They're having meetings, talking about it. They're talking about it. Must have been the shrink. Must have been the psychologist. Must have been Zeisel. He's the guy that told her what to say, and he did not. How can you
He's great.
ruin a man's reputation with the career that he has had and still has, thankfully, to put him in a position where he tells a broken young woman who is vilified by our society for killing her 3 children, that he goes in the hospital and tells her to say she heard voices. Disgusting. So now you know that she told Sheila first that she heard voices. Command hallucination. She didn't say command hallucination. I heard voices. It was a male voice. Told me, you had these other guys that came in. The government's rebuttal witnesses. Very, very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Here he goes.
The first 2, Mac. put him
Uh-oh.
aside. You've got the other doctor as well. So Mac is, why he was freaked out when I asked him where he stayed. And the other guy looked at me like his eyes were bugging. Why did I ask where he stayed? Whatever. Point is, they don't see her for years. And why? The other guy, Halbern, I think it was Halbern, he had to wait until maybe it was the last man, I forget. They had to process his payment from the DA's office through the school. Who cares? If you have an obligation to try and be objective, to try and even look as though you're competent and objective, why would you wait for so long? Why would you go with another guy? Why would you take this young lady and have her in a room and question her one right after the other? Wouldn't you like to sit there and be questioned by Dr. Mack? Boy, that'd be an experience for 3 hours, 4 hours. And the other guy is going to pepper his questions at her as well between that period. And the next day, she can take tests and then go back at it again with Mack and with Halbern. And she was cooperative. She was pleasant. She was friendly. She answered the questions and she owned what she did. Huh?
Yeah.
She never ran from anything.
She ran towards
She's
it.
gone through evaluation after evaluation after evaluation, recorded. You'll have the video to look at as they're questioning her, as she's sitting there in her wheelchair, hour after hour after hour, 3 years after this incident, but that's okay. You're busy. Paul Zeisel was there, literally, in Brigham and Women's, because I called him, because I was asked to represent this young lady. You heard evidence. I saw her in the hospital. I saw her laying in the bed broken. I saw her laying in the bed practically dead. I reached out to Dr. Zeisel.
Oh,
I
God.
asked him, please, can you talk to this woman? Concerned, as he testified, for her mental well-being. What kind of demons, what kind of horror was in her mind?
He is doing a
As
brilliant
she lay
job.
there paralyzed and hurting and medicated,
He's making you
swollen,
feel it.
tubes, pops, chains. He went and talked to her. Big deal.
Yeah.
I asked him to go. You judge the credibility of a person. Did Paul Zeisel have the ring of truth when he told you that he's there out of humane feeling to try to help this young lady? And he's been by her side for 3.5 years. Same thing as Sheila. Why would Sheila, for all this time, visit with Lindsay as she testified at the Tewksbury Hospital? She's not getting paid. She's not a hired gun. She's not somebody that's coming in to say something at my request. She loves Lindsay. He's a good kid. He's a beautiful soul. So you have Zeisel that has been with her all that
She's
time.
lucky to have this
You've got
guy.
Sheila, who's been with her all that time. You've got evidence that her mom and dad, who lived in Connecticut, come up and they stay and they visit with her and that they sit with her. And God forbid, they actually sometimes had dinner. Remember that? They get the Tewksbury records. Boy, there's a good score. Let's go through the Tewksbury records and see what she's doing on the anniversary of the deaths. How about on their birthdays? Can you see them sitting there going through the medical records? Okay, doctor, what did she do then? She propelled herself down the hallway, met with her parents, laughed, had dinner, watched TV, talked on the telephone. God forbid. She's not curled up in the fetal position, wailing, self-flagellating constantly for 3.5 years. She's acting like a human being trying to exist. But they go through the records and they want to get those dates and use them against her. Manipulation. And then you consider we're 3 weeks away from a trial. The guy yesterday that's looking up to the heavens while he's testifying, Caesar, tells you that he wanted to establish a rapport. Can you imagine? You know that you're 3 weeks away from your murder trial, and you know that this is doctor number 3 who's been hired by the government to come in and evaluate you and testify against you, and he's going to establish a rapport. There is no rapport, but yet she was cooperative, she was friendly. Interestingly enough, just like the treating doctors don't talk to each other, they don't communicate with each other, they don't have access to medical records. She signs the HIPAA forms. They don't know what her records are, but they know for sure what Dr. Resnick had in his report. They know for sure what Dr. Zeisel had in his report. They know for sure what Meg Spinelli had in her report, and they incorporate that into their report. But then you have the MMPI and the other psychological tests that were administered to her on the second day of the Mac Heilbrunn team interviewing, interrogating, questioning her. She passes the MMPI. Testimony is presented. She answered the MMPI honestly. And they're pertaining to state of mind. They're pertaining to questions about what occurred. They're questioning this young lady as to what her state of mind was then, in the middle, and now. And she didn't lie. She didn't malinga. She didn't exaggerate, and more importantly, if anything, she minimizes. But she certainly was off the chart on the suicide scale. And then you have testimony from Dr. Resnick, Dr. Zeisel, Dr. Carney, and they were paid for their testimony. We're all paid, like I said, not the jury so much, but the judge, myself, Chrissy, everybody gets paid. These doctors came in and testified. Phil Resnick, the man is something out of a scary movie. He has the world record of investigating, examining, and treating people in psychosis that kill their children, filicide. He has a world-renowned record for checking fakers to see if a person is malingering. Their doctor agreed that his article on Voices is a leading article with research in the world. Their doctor agreed that he, Bill Resnick, is an expert on malingering. You heard him testify by Zoom because he had surgery, but he showed up by Zoom and testified that, again, 4 months after this incident, he met with Lindsay, he evaluated Lindsay, compared, looked at all the records, just like all the rest of them. Everyone says they looked at all the records, the police reports, grand jury minutes, everything else. He indicates clearly, in his opinion, that she was in a state of psychosis at the time of this death, times 3. Has any of the government doctors rebutted that? One of them, Heilbrunn, said it's possible either way. That's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The other one, Mac, you can accept his testimony if you wish, but I suggest that you probably won't. And then you're left with the doctor yesterday, who didn't even know. She didn't even know what killing during the course of the psychosis was. And when I was questioning him about it, he agreed. And I said, don't just agree with me. You're just agreeing with me because I said that? And he basically said, yeah. What kind of expert testimony is this? It's a mess. But the government uses them to try to rebut a man like Phil Resnick, who tells you that she was suffering from a horrific mental disease and defect at the time of the killing of her beautiful children. Why, the how, and the fact that under the law, as His Honor has given you,
Hairbow to
she's
the
not
end.
criminally responsible. And the burden is on them right here. Prove to you that at the time of the killing, as Dr. Resnick says, that she was suffering from a disease or defect. As Dr. Zeisel said, she was suffering from a disease or defect. As Dr. Condi said, she was suffering from a disease or defect, and Condi took you down the road of all of these medications as a psychopharmacologist, as a doctor that specializes in prescription medications. And you got the evidence. So you're able to look at that and determine, see what the side effects are, what she was complaining of, and look at her records. I mean, they have really turned her inside out. I mean, they've got every single text, every single email, every single picture, everything that she did in college. Oh, that's another thing. She lied, according to the guy yesterday, she lied to Pat about being on Prozac. They were dating for 3 months. She's living in Boston. She meets this kid. She thinks that she might like him, and they're dating. Oh, excuse me, before you go out with me, let me tell you that about a year ago when I was studying for my exams, because I'm nervous about talking in public, I got on Prozac. Seriously? That's what the government is arguing in this case. You're going to have this journal, which talks about her being, this is how controlling she was, manipulation. In the opening statement, you may recall that the district attorney said that she was a hard, charging, manipulating woman that was controlling, and everything in their life was controlled. And she ran it to the water, to the carrots, to the beets. You look in this book, and as you might recall, Ms. Rossi testified when asked, did you feel that she was being controlling of you? Because she says, for example, Monday, 10:24, Callan, put down for a nap. Hopefully we'll nap for 2 hours. If he wakes shortly, let him resettle himself. Bottle when he wakes up. Then it goes on and on. Make salad, romaine lettuce. He likes peppers, broccoli. Cut the sweet potatoes in chunks. Thank you, with the heart. Another good score. You look at her journals that she took. You'll see, as you go along, in the dates that she's recording in these journals, she's talking about the drugs that she was prescribed. And look at the first page. Look at how detailed dates, how she felt, 10 milligrams Prozac, and it goes on like that, goes on through November into December. December 9th, 10th, 11th. Horrible intrusive thoughts. Horrible thoughts in the AM. Horrible thoughts. Horrible thoughts. No motivation. And then finally, horrible thoughts, no motivation, deeply depressed. Then that's around the time she went to Women and Infants Hospital, right? Looking for help. Look at this. As she runs into January, there's nothing other than little chicken scratches because her mind was gone. In January, as she's on these drugs and she's suffering from what you've heard is postpartum depression that can lead to postpartum psychosis, and you have these men coming in here that don't even know psychosis from schizophrenia as experts, telling you that if a woman doesn't have these symptoms, like it's a disease, symptoms of postpartum depression within 4 weeks. That's it. Lights out. You're not a person that can be considered. You're not a real person for purposes of postpartum depression and/or postpartum psychosis. Well, I suggest that he's wrong. I suggest the second guy's wrong and the third guy. Well, actually, I didn't even know. It's your memory. If the gentleman, Mac, even knew, I think he said 4 weeks. It can go up to a year or longer. But we don't really know because you heard the evidence. There's no evidence. There's nothing in the DSM, but that's the Bible. God forbid you should go to Europe. You should look at the World Health Organization records. You should look at the way they treat pregnant women that have problems with their children. No, we're the most advanced country in the world. But we still have doctors that come into court on a murder trial and talk about a 4-week cutoff on something that they don't even know exists. They've never treated it. They've never written about it. You have terrorism experts. You have an expert that comes in and talks about his focus and his interests, and it's about juveniles and drugs. And like I said, kids that like to drink and smoke weed. Those are the experts, quote unquote, to support their burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Lindsay was not suffering from a disease or defect at the time that she killed her children. You all remember this. October. This is not
Next to
an
Mom.
evidence, it's marker identification. It's too big. So, but basically it shows clearly and unequivocally the depths of despair that this young kid was in, trying to raise 3 kids, trying to be a wife, ready to go back to work. Did anyone say that she was just lazy or just didn't want to go back to work? Manipulation. They're arguing. She didn't want to go back to work. She didn't want to go back to work because she didn't want to leave her kids, especially Callan, because she loved her children. They were her life. Manipulation. And when you consider the journals, I don't know, you ever watched the movie there, The Shining, with Jack Nicholson. Remember the scene when he's sitting there in a state of complete psychosis?
The Shining.
And he's writing a book and he's typing, and the wife finds the book and opens it up and looks at it and says, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Repeated after repeated after repeated. And he says, do you like it? You look at the records of her Googling drugs. You look at how many times, how many hours of the night in the afternoon she's looking this stuff up, in between taking care of the family.
So
In
true.
between all of the stuff that was going on with visiting doctors, seeing doctors, going to Rhode Island, being told, no, we can't help you, calling a suicide hotline, we can't help you, calling another suicide hotline, we can't help you. My God, what does she have to do? She was reaching out for help and she was not getting it. She turns herself in to McLean Hospital. You saw the doctor, nice one. She's testifying. She didn't know. I suggest to you that she didn't know hardly anything, let alone psychosis involving a young lady like her going through what she was going through. The government bears the burden of proof
Here we go.
beyond a reasonable doubt. They bring, for example, Ian Whiffen. The guy, you might remember him, was the guy that's, I guess he developed or helped develop Celebrate. What you get when you look at the records, you don't measure on an Apple Watch. Well, I shouldn't say Apple Watch because we know that they didn't have the Apple Watch, but on a cell phone. You don't measure going down the stairs. You measure stair climbing, right? That's what the testimony was. And there were 3 stairs that were climbed. Okay. The last record is 5:38. At 5:38 p.m., we went through that on cross. What happens to the phone? Don't know. It was on the bed. Was it dropped on the bed and it left there for 20 minutes? She could have been anywhere in the house during all that period of time, right? Right. You've got a compressed period of time that Patrick leaves to go to the restaurant to pick up the CV, and you heard the guy yesterday say, and then she sent him off to go to CVS. It's on the way. It's on the way. She didn't want him out of the house long. She was in distress. She wanted him home. to help with the bathing, to help with the kids, to help putting them to bed. How long is he going to be gone? She Googles it. Is that something that is so nefarious? You'd think that that goes right along line with the book about good mothers having bad thoughts. My God, she actually Googled the time frame that Patrick would take to go to 3B and pick up the food and then leave and stop at CVS on the way. So I guess the government is suggesting she's not in a psychosis. So she's Googling Miralax because the doctor earlier that day told her that the baby Cora needed Miralax. Why would she do that? Because remember the government's opening when they told you she wasn't suffering from the psychosis. She was a woman that didn't want to live her life anymore, wasn't happy being a mother, didn't want to live that life.
Yeah.
So she's going to kill her kids and hopefully throw herself out the window and not paralyze herself, and then she could run off into the sunset, I guess. That's what their theory was, along with the fact it wasn't a real good suicide, it was fake. Well, now we know, don't we? The mess that this young lady was in her brain, my brain is being damaged. I will never be better. That's the evidence. That's the evidence that we have in this case. Burden of proof is on them to prove to you that at the time that she killed these 3 beautiful kids, that she just wanted to move on with her life. And I suggest to you, just as there's no chicken nugget residue, and then when you look at those photographs, there's a slice of a cucumber, there's a slice of a carrot, there's no chicken nuggets in that bowl. Patrick wouldn't know what the kids are eating. She was the one that would cook their dinner. She was in the refrigerator, but the guy yesterday is like, oh no. Patrick said that the child was eating the chicken McNuggets in the bowl. No, she was getting food out for the 2 kids, not the little baby, 2 kids for dinner. There's no evidence that she's lying. There's no evidence that she's malingering. And finally, you remember there was a big deal about whether or not the voices are within the head or whether or not they're outside of the head. Dr. Resnick's article with the largest research on voices malingering in the world indicates that 38% of almost 1,000 people that were examined report voices from inside their head, and it stops. You're going to buy that guy yesterday? He doesn't know what he's talking about. This young lady is not guilty of the killing of her children because she was suffering from a disease and defect, as His Honor instructed you. And they're not going to be able to prove otherwise. And it's their burden, not ours.
Done. Big Red. Woo! There goes a master right there, Big Red. What is going to happen? Do we go right into prosecution? Do they take a recess? Lindsay's smiling. Look at the smile. A little small smile. And I don't think she's like, ha, here we go. She's saying, there's a man who stood up for me. Look at her. She's fighting back tears now. It's a lot of emotion. She's trying to hold it back. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's building.
Did it make you emotional to watch how connected he is with this?
Look at her. She's trying not to cry.
There's no dispute
Oh, my
that
God.
Lindsay Clancy was suffering from mental
Oh,
illness.
right into the
and that
prosecution.
she tried to kill herself. There's no dispute
Guys, I
about
got to
that.
tell you something.
All of the evidence that you've heard, even the experts that the Commonwealth put before you, say that she was suffering from mental illness.
Alan
and she tried
Jackson
to
is
kill
going to
herself.
join us
That's
after
not
this.
the issue in this trial.
He's
The
dropping off his
issue
kid at school,
is
but
whether at the time she killed Cora, Dawson, and Callan, she knew the difference between right and wrong, and whether she could conform her behavior to the requirements of the law. This case is not about our mental health system or how it treats women or what's in the DSM-5 and what's not. That's a distraction to get you angry and passionate about an important issue, but an issue that's not on trial here. What's on trial here, what the issue is here, is what Lindsay Clancy did the night of January 24th, 2023, and what her mental state was at the time. And you can use her psychological history and records, the treatment records, to look at both before and after she killed the kids, to look at how she got to that point, what her thought process was, what her motivation was. But it's not the system or the DSM or any of that that caused her to strangle her kids. In fact, she had more access to treatment and care and support than a lot of people do. She had health insurance that covered multiple doctors, multiple specialty programs, treatment at South Shore, at Mass General, her stay at McLean. She had prescription coverage to cover the different trials she went through. She had support at home. She had 18 weeks of maternity leave with the opportunity to extend that as much as she needed, which is excellent, which is what all women should have. But she had that. She had support from both sides of her family, hers and Patrick's. The two older kids, Cora and Dawson, were in preschool 3.5 days a week. And she had the nanny, Elaine, who helped with Callan in 3 mornings a week. And she also helped her with housework and with food prep. This wasn't a woman suffering from a lack of care, a lack of resources. She had an abundance of help, an abundance of care. She had all of that and more. And, you know,
This is almost like this is David and Goliath there.
that she wasn't dealing with.
If Goliath was really likable.
She was. She had depression. And whether that's from bipolar or major depressive disorder or postpartum depression, it all boils down to she was depressed, right? And she was trying to deal with that, trying to get help for that. But it wasn't the fault of the providers that she was struggling with this or that she wasn't getting better. They were doing the best they could. You have the records, you heard the testimony. They were doing the best they could with the information she provided them. And that wasn't always accurate information. That wasn't always the full picture. And they were doing the best they could with her level of cooperation and compliance with the plan. Take her medications. You know from the records and from the pill bottles what she was prescribed and how she was supposed to take those medications. And you know from the pill bottles what she actually took. And sometimes those two things didn't align with what she told her providers, what she told Patrick, what she told her mother. You take the Zoloft, for example. The prescription was for 1 25 milligram pill a day for 7 days, and then to go up to the 50 milligrams after 7 days. She told Dr. Tufts that she took the pills as prescribed for 7 days, went up on the 8th day to 50 milligrams, and that's when she had the insomnia and the other side effects and symptoms. She told Patrick that she took the pills for 7 days and they had no effect, so she called Dr. Tufts, who then told her to increase the dose. Well, you know what she told Patrick is not accurate because the pill bottle says, take it for a week and then increase it. That was the plan from the beginning. That wasn't the result of a phone call to Dr. Tufts. And you know what she told Dr. Tufts isn't accurate either because only 7 pills were taken from the bottle. So that leaves you 2 options. Either she took the medication as prescribed, 1 pill a day for 7 days, and then didn't increase it, which she says is what caused the side effects and the insomnia, or what she did was not take it as prescribed. She didn't do it 7 days and ease into it and then increase it. She either missed a dose or increased it early before she was supposed to. Either scenario is not good. She knows as a nurse the importance of following the instructions of your medications. She knows how important it is to follow the plan and do what's on the bottle and do what your provider tells you and to give that accurate information to your provider. She didn't say, I went up a dose, went up to 50 too early. Maybe they could have adjusted that and tried the 25 milligram for longer and eased her into it. But no, she told her that she did what she was told and then went up and had these problems. So you can see that in a lot of the medications she has. You have the pill bottles that were turned in by Patrick, and a lot of them don't even have many pills missing from the bottles. Some of them have none. The Buspar prescription, the first one, there's only 2 pills missing. The second prescription, no pills missing. The Lamictal, she never took those pills at all until the night she tried to kill herself. So there's a lack of compliance there, a lack of follow through, a lack of communication with her providers about what was happening with her and how she was taking the medications. And defense wants you to believe that this is a woman who's begging for help and willing to do anything and everything her providers tell her to do to get better. And she was asking for help. She wanted help. She wanted to get better. But she wanted to get better on her own terms, doing things her way, the way she thought she should do them. And as a nurse, she knew that's not the right way to approach it. She knew that an accurate medical history, accurate information about your side effects and symptoms, what your thoughts are, that's important for your providers to know. And she didn't do it. And it seems that the reason that she's not necessarily fully compliant and she's doing what she wants to do is she has this desire to be herself again. She just wants to go back to who she was, and she wants it now. And she doesn't want any side effects. She just wants to be herself again and wants it now. And that's understandable. That's relatable to want to get that magic pill that will fix you immediately and you can go back to being yourself. But she knew that's not how it worked. And you know that's what she was thinking, because in the searches on her phone, she's searching for things like, which antidepressant works the fastest? How fast does Wellbutrin work? And she's searching all of these different medications for the side effects and symptoms, some of them that she never even discusses with her doctors. And, again, it's relatable that she wants to get back to where she was, but she had discussions with her providers about how these medications work and that it takes time for them to get into your system and it takes time for them to work. She even texted her mother about that, about how she knew that she had to be patient, that it took weeks for the amitriptyline, for example,
She's
to get
defending all
into her
these meds.
system and worked. And she knew all of this, and she couldn't be patient. She couldn't wait. She wanted faster. She even told Dr. Tufts, it's a note in the records, that she knew the problem was that she wasn't focusing on one provider and following one plan. She knew that going from doctor to doctor, practice to practice, South Shore to MGH, to different programs,
That's not on her.
not the best way to deal with the situation. She said it in her own words to Dr. Tufts. You need to stick with one provider and stick with one plan to see if it works. And she actually turned down help from at least 2 locations at various points. We talked a lot about the women and infants records, and you don't have to believe what I say about them or the witnesses say about them or defense. You can look at the records themselves. Page 9, it says right there.
This is a
How
gamble
was
right
one
here.
who said
This is a
over
gamble right
medication
here.
is
She
the
knew
issue.
she couldn't wait.
Not
She
the
knew
doctors
she couldn't
there,
be
not the
patient. She
people
couldn't stick with
evaluating
one
her.
provider. She kept
What they
shopping
put
around. It's
was
on her,
depression,
not on the
all
medical
out,
industry,
all out,
not on
adverse
anyone
medication
actually
effects.
quarterbacking her
That
health
means they
care
have to look into it to see if medications
with all
are
the
followed.
signs that they see.
If there's a
Unbelievable.
difference between an adverse effect, a symptom, or a problem with a medication and being over-medicated, taking too much of a medication or taking too many at one time.
That's a good comment
There's a
right there.
difference there. And women and infants never said she was over-medicated. What they also don't do is turn her away. It's not that she went there and they said, can't help you, go away. They told her, it's in the records, based on the onset of her symptoms, they weren't sure if it was postpartum or peripartum. They saw she had an issue. They wanted to help her. It says there, we offered her. They offered her 3 programs. They offered her the inpatient medical management program. They offered her a partial hospitalization program for general mental health. And they offered her an outpatient program. It shows they put a lot of thought into that, into offering her this care. When they gave her 3 separate options, considering she's a young mom, maybe she doesn't want to be away from home, but we'll give her the option of being in the hospital and getting her medications right. But we'll also give her the option of the partial hospitalization where she can, be here during the day and go home to her kids in the evening. And then that third option of being an outpatient and being able to be at home with her kids and come in for appointments. It was very thoughtful of them. It was very well planned out to give her these 3 options. And it's kind of the exact opposite of just turning someone away and saying, go away, we can't help you. And her response, I'm going to talk to my provider about it for guidance. And she goes to Dr. Tufts She sees gelada at some point. You look at the records, she never discussed those options with them. She told them that women and infants turned her away and said she didn't qualify for the program. She didn't discuss those 3
Look at
programs
Red.
that they offered her.
Disgusted.
So basically, they give her this offer of help, 3 different forms of help, and she's just, no, doesn't want to do them and doesn't discuss them with her provider. And also that first time she goes to Mass General, to the emergency room, they offer her a bed at McLean, and she turns it down. She wants help. No one's saying she doesn't want help, but she's making these decisions and doing these things that aren't helping her get help, that are turning away help, because she wants the help in a certain way, in a certain time frame. And, you know, all during this time, between September and December of 2022, she's interacting with friends, with family, teachers, gym staff, the nanny, people at gymnastics, interacting with them in public spaces, in public ways, driving her kids around, all throughout that time, able to know the difference between right and wrong, able to conform her behavior to the law and to the requirements of society, and interacting with others and presenting herself as a functioning adult, a functioning mom. You know that she knew the difference between right and wrong during that time because she had those thoughts at the beginning of December of harming her kids. And she told Patrick and her mother about them. But who she didn't tell is important and very telling. She didn't tell a single provider, not Tufts, not Gelada, not Jennifer McAllister, not Dukes, no one at McLean, no one at MGH, no one at South Shore, didn't tell any of them. And why? Because the police might take away her kids. That's a rational thought, that telling mandated reporters that you're having a thought of harming your kids, that they might be taken away for their safety, that's a rational thought. And it also shows she knew it was a bad thought, a wrong thought, because you don't think someone's going to take your kids away because you're thinking something positive or neutral. It's because it's bad. It's
This
because
is a
it's
good
wrong.
point she's
It's
making for the
against law.
prosecution. You
So
have to
she
give it where it
knew
is. I mean, this is,
that
you
it
know,
was wrong.
this is
And she
effective.
was able to conform her behavior to the law because she didn't tell those providers. She went in and met with them and talked about what she was experiencing and talked about her depression. And not only did she not tell them, she lied to them. They asked her, are you having thoughts of harming others? Do you have homicidal ideation? She told Tufts no. She
But
told
that's not
Gelada
what's
no.
at
She
issue
told
here,
Dukes no.
Jennifer.
She told Goodhart no.
The psychosis
Every day at
came
McLean, she
on
said
with
no.
18
At
to 20
MGH,
minutes
she
of a
said
window.
no.
That's when it got
So not
extreme.
only is she hiding it, she's lying about it. She's
Oh.
controlling her behavior. She's controlling the presentation she presents to her providers. And then we get to her being admitted to McLean. You know, up to that point, all of the drugs she's taken from September through December, they weren't given at the same time. The most she ever had at one time was 2 to 3 medications. And usually if it was 3, that third medication was the Benadryl or the hydroxyzine that's like Benadryl, or the Ativan or Valium as needed for anxiety. But most of the time it was 2 medications. And the way they did those medications, you heard from Dr. Satoff, a man who's examined thousands of patients with psychosis, who's treated women with postpartum psychosis, who's treated women who have killed their children, that man who apparently has no expertise. You heard from him that the medication trials were reasonable and rational. She tried a medication, it didn't work, or they had side effects, they stopped the medication. They tried something else. They tried a different combination. And unfortunately, with mental health, there's no blood test or CAT scan or MRI that you can do that says, well, you have bipolar or you have schizophrenia. It unfortunately doesn't work like that. So what the providers have to do is rely on what the patient's telling them. hope that information is accurate, rely on what they're observing about the patient, and make a diagnosis. And then based on that diagnosis, have a treatment plan. And every patient reacts differently to medication. One patient could do fine on it, the next not. So they have to do that trial and error process, and it's normal, it's typical, it's reasonable. And that's what they did for her. And even if you believe that the number of different medications she took over that time, or the combination of those medications affected her negatively, after McLean, they were out of her system. Some of them had been out of her system for months. Zoloft, she stopped in October. Other pills she stopped in November or December. And that last one, the Seroquel, that she really had a bad reaction to, is out of her system. The only medication she's on leaving McLean is trazodone for sleep and Valium for anxiety. And that's it when she leaves there. And why does she leave there? He wants to go to Corey's birthday party. And that's relatable, that's understandable.
This woman tried to blame Lindsay Clancy for taking all the drugs that she did. It was her that couldn't stick to one and kept just swallowing pills, and not the provider.
She wasn't there. She knew how she was feeling. She knew she was depressed. She knew she needed help. But she wanted to be that mom she was more. And there was nothing McLean could do to keep her there. She said she denied suicidal ideation. She denied homicidal ideation. She said she wasn't hearing voices or seeing anything. They saw the entire time she was there no signs of psychosis. In fact, every doctor she saw, from Tufts in September all the way through Tufts at January 23rd, none of them saw any signs of psychosis ever. So they're all wrong. All these different doctors at all these different practices.
It's acute psychosis, Clowney, that happened on January 24th. But it was building up thanks to a frazzled brain.
No signs of psychosis. And they even give her a task to do to see if she can manage her mental health outside of the hospital. Make an appointment, pick a doctor, make an appointment.
Did I call her
And she
Clowney?
does it. She decides on Dr. Tufts. She makes the follow-up appointment. She gets the documentation and gives it to them, showing she can manage her mental health. They have to let her go at that point. She's there voluntarily. There's no grounds to keep her if she's not showing she's a danger to herself or others. So they let her go home. And at home, again, all throughout January, she's showing her ability to know right from wrong and to conform her behavior to the requirements of the law in all the activities she does in January. First, there's the birthday party. She's throwing the birthday party. She's monitoring the kids, making sure, typical mom birthday party stuff. Everyone's eating, getting cake, singing happy birthday. You saw her in the video. She appeared happy and smiling, normal. Everyone that interacted with her said, seemed a little tired, but okay.
No one's ever called me a megalib. How about a mega
The
centrist?
Museum of Science in Boston.
How about a
It was
mega
crowded and
pragmatist?
overwhelming on a good day. And she's there with 3 kids under 5 with her husband. You see her monitoring them, caring for them, doing the exhibits, showing them what to do with the exhibits. If you watched that video and you didn't know who the Clancy family was, and we asked you, pick out the woman who is depressed, pick out the woman who wants to kill herself, pick out the woman who's about to kill her kids. You couldn't pick her out. She's completely calm.
Why does she spend so much? She's arguing a different case. What are you talking about?
She's able to be
She wasn't
suicidal,
psychotic, days and weeks out.
Control her thoughts and present that image to the world. She's able to.
And
do
they're
it
not
at the
claiming
Cape
she
Cod
was.
as well. Similar scenario. She's able to watch the kids when Patrick goes to brunch. She's able to watch the boys when Patrick and Cora go skiing on the 16th. She's able to interact with the Carneys on January 22nd. And yeah, they both initially said
I'll give her a little credit on one thing.
she was always
She has authenticity
but she
too.
was able to interact
Big
with
Red
them,
has different
talk about
kind
her
of
kitchen.
connectivity,
Seemed okay.
but she
In between
has an
January
authentic
7th
nature to her. better than the other
January
one, I'll say that. They picked the
21st.
right closer.
Her mother never comes to the house to intervene. Her sister, a licensed social worker, a mandated reporter, never comes to the house to intervene or help, never makes a report. And they're in contact with her every day, texting with her, calling with her almost every day, and never see any signs that they should be concerned or worried or intervene. And you have those text messages between the defendant and her mom. And her mom obviously was very attentive, very caring, asked very pointed questions. How are you doing? How are you sleeping? How are the medications? Obviously, a very concerned, loving mom. How did Lindsay answer? I'm getting a little better. I'm sleeping better. She said the only time her sleep was interrupted is if Cora had a bellyache or one of the kids was up. But she's doing better every day. She's sleeping better. She's feeling better. She still says, I'm not myself. I'm not where I want to be, but she's moving in the right direction. And we have that text from her mom the day she leaves on the 22nd, headed back home. I'm glad to see you're doing so much better. Now her mom now wants you to believe that she lied to her, that she wasn't doing better and she was just trying to encourage her. But there are so many things you can say to your daughter who's struggling with mental health other than lie to her if you want to encourage her. You've got this. Take it day by day. I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. But she wants you to think she lied to her when she said she was doing better. But you know that wasn't a lie. You know that she was doing better, or seemed to be, and that her mom said, I'm glad you're doing so much better, because Patrick said the same thing. He said she was doing better in January. Every day was better. The 24th was the best day. They had hope because that's what she wanted to show them. The only person during that time that she gave even a little glimpse of maybe she wasn't doing that much better was Dr. Tufts. And she told Dr. Tufts that she was feeling depressed, which is why Dr. Tufts prescribed the 10 milligrams of amitriptyline a day, very low dose. And then she told Dr. Tufts again, still not helping. And so Dr. Tufts raised it to the 20 milligrams. Again, a very low dose, a dose a child could take. And that shows how cautious and conservative Dr. Tufts was being in the treatment of this patient who had had those interactions with medications previously. She was being cautious and conservative.
It's a tough position for a woman to be in here, to demonize, I shouldn't say demonize, but to criticize heavily another woman for
she still denied having a suicide plan, denied wanting to hurt
postpartum psychosis, you know what I mean?
Denied visual
Are
hallucinations.
you denying that it was...
no signs of psychosis, all the way up to January 23rd.
That's really interesting. She's probably struggled with it too. I mean, she's human.
And if you look at their journal, you look at this journal that defense counsel showed you, she's very detailed, excuse me, about when she took medication, what she took, the amount she took, what the effect was.
The problem is she's trying to convince the jury and all of us along with it
And where it stops,
that not only that she was comfortable with this, that she knew what she was doing when she did all this.
all the way up to January 18th.
It just doesn't add up. The profile of the human being she was, the person she was, the employee that she was, it doesn't add up.
She's decided that it's too much.
And this has got to be unanimous.
And so she
The
just
burden is
stops
on
keeping
her,
track
and it's just
of
too
the
much.
prescriptions.
Can't imagine.
And then we get to January 24th.
I don't understand the question. How do you
Everything
schedule
that
a
happened that
psychosis?
day, every person she interacted with, every situation she
I think
was
what
in,
you're saying is,
shows you she knew
right,
the
she's
difference
painting a
between right and
picture
wrong,
of a
and she
woman
could
who
conform her
built up to
behavior
this.
the law.
I don't know. To me, psychosis is not in your control.
A
It comes
doctor's
on all of a
appointment first thing
sudden.
in the morning. She's able to drive there.
Jackie is a
She's
very
able to
funny
interact
person.
with medical professionals. She's able to seem absolutely fine and normal. And this is a doctor who's treated the kids since Cora was a baby. This is a pediatrician who's known the family and has known Lindsay for almost 5 years. A woman who's trained trained in recognizing the signs of postpartum depression. She told you she looks for flat affect, she looks for teariness, and some other things that she told you. She saw none of that. She was able to control herself and interact with her in a perfectly normal, concerned mother way. Able to get home from that appointment. She plays with the kids, she takes them outside, she's sending those messages and photos to her mom and to Patrick, basically saying, look, this is a good day. I'm having a good day. Everything's good. I'm getting better. Here's proof. This is what I'm doing.
We know.
You start to see the planning at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When this is on her phone, you can see her search for Miralax, kids Miralax at 4:02. And then a little while later at 4:13, you see her search for takeout from 3V. And then immediately after, she does the Apple Maps search to see how long it takes to get to 3V. Well, defense wants you to believe that, she was checking that because she didn't want him gone for too long. She wanted him home. She was in distress. If you're in distress, don't send him anywhere. Make food at home, have him cook, get delivery, get DoorDash. Go to one of the other restaurants that Patrick mentioned that were 2 minutes down the road. And she didn't have to look up on Apple Maps to see where this restaurant was. You heard from Patrick, they had been there at least 3 times in the months before. She had lived in that area for 4 years. She knew where it was. She knew generally how long it would take to get there. What she needed to know was how long specifically on that night it would take to get there. Because she knew she would have a limited amount of time to do what she wanted to do. And what she had decided to do was to kill the children and then kill herself. And so she needed to know, not generally, but exactly how much time will I have. And then obviously sees that that's not enough time.
Duxbury
So
is
then she
not
searches
Boston,
CVS.
okay? It takes
Not
the
only
same
does she
amount of
search
time every night.
CVS, she calls them and asks them if they have kids Miralax, and they say no, but they have Pedialax and one other medication. And then she asks, is it in stock? Because she needs to know not only what they have, but is it in stock? Because she's adding to this errand that she's sending Patrick out on. And she has to make sure she's not interrupted. She doesn't want that call at 5:33. She wants him to go to CVS and have the medication there and get it, and then go on to 3V, so she has time to do what she needs to do. So that's why she's calling to see what they have and make sure it's in stock. It's a level of planning there and thinking and decision-making that Dr. Satoff referenced. And then after that, she texts Patrick, it's been a long day, can we do 3V? And he's on board with that. And she's like, okay, check out the menu, let's get on this. And he asks her what she's getting. She tells him the Mediterranean Power Bowl. He says he's getting the pork belly risotto. 5:10 p.m., she's calling that order in. She's talking to the hostess. She gets the order accurate. She is able to answer questions about how she wants her food. She's able to recall and give Patrick's phone number and his name as the person picking up. And then Patrick's leaving to go get the food. And as he's leaving, the kids are in the living room on the couch eating. The defendant's in the doorway near the basement door. And she says to him, basically, by the way, can you go to CVS? Acting like it's this last minute thought, like, by the way, can you get this? And not something that she's been planning for over an hour. She knew about the Pedialax and she knew about 3D and she knew all of that before she even asked him about dinner. But it's like, can you go to CVS on your way and get kids Pedialax? And
Is this
he,
effective?
of course, is like, sure, I'll get that. And he heads out the door at 5:15. And that's the time he leaves because he says to her, yeah, just text it to me. And that's such a normal kind of interaction that we had in your common sense and life experience. You're headed out the door to run an errand and someone in your home says, while you're out, could you get me X, Y, and Z? And you're like, yeah, sure, just text it to me. Because you don't want to get there and be like, what did they want me to get? It's such a normal interaction, right? Can you get this for me? Sure, text it to me. And he heads out the door and she texts it to him at 5:15 p.m.
This is all an argument for
And then
premeditated
he goes
murder,
to CVS,
not just a
even
mom
though
being
she's
very
told him what to
detailed
get and they
before
have it, he still
psychosis
makes that call at
comes on.
5:33. She calls him back at 5:34, and then he heads out to 3V and then comes home. And when he gets home, puts the things on the counter and it's quiet. It's quiet in a way that a house with 3 kids under 5 should not be during waking hours. So he calls out to them, no answer. He goes to the basement door and opens it and yells down and no answer. And he closes the door. He calls her phone, no answer. He goes upstairs and is able to unlock the door and see the blood and see the window open and go down to her. And when he goes down to her, she's no longer actively bleeding. He doesn't have to put pressure on any of her wounds. And he says to her, "What did you do?" And her response is, "I tried to kill myself." And then it's, "Where are the kids?" In the basement. It's not, "I heard a voice. I was compelled to do this. I didn't want to do this. Go help the kids. They're hurt. They're in the basement. Go save them." No. It's, "I tried to kill myself. And the kids are in the basement." And defense wants you to believe that conversation couldn't have happened because of how she sounded on the 911 call. But you heard from the doctors, people can deteriorate over time. When he first gets there, she's able to talk to him. And as that progresses, she's losing the ability to talk. And there's nothing in the medical records about her throat being crushed or her thyroid being crushed. You can look at that. Her thyroid was bruised, her vertebrae were broken, but her throat wasn't crushed. She had the ability to make sound and to communicate.
Make sound, make mm.
And if you listen to the 911, he's talking to her, and then he's answering the 911 dispatchers about what she said. So even if we can't hear her clearly and we can't understand what she was saying, he could.
It's a little odd that she could talk to him, but no one else afterwards. You don't usually
You know
regress.
from all of the evidence that you have, putting aside the experts, but all the evidence you have in terms of crime scene photos and videos and the witness testimony and all the medical records, you know how she killed them,
Woo,
where she
Pamela.
killed them, what time she killed them, and the order that she killed them in. Even without what she told the doctors about the order, that's something you can infer from the evidence. Because you know, in order to bring the kids to the basement and strangle each one of them, and then come upstairs and get a knife and have a phone call, and then go upstairs to the second floor and either take handfuls of pills or crush them, however she did it, take the pills, and then cut herself. And it's not just 3 cuts, it's the hesitation marks, and then the cuts themselves. And then you know she bled in a couple spots for a little while, because you heard from Sherry Crook how the pooling in front of the mirror is someone, basically the blood dropping down and someone there for a period of time. And then over closer to the window, the same thing. So she's bleeding in front of the mirror for a period of time, over by the window for a period of time. And then she goes out of the window. And whether she dove out or climbed out and slid down, whatever you think that evidence shows from the shingles and everything you've seen, whatever happened, she goes out of the window and she's on the ground. And by the time Patrick gets there, she's no longer bleeding. So for all of that to happen in that short amount of time while Patrick's gone, she had to have started killing the kids immediately after he left. Now, defense wants you to believe that it was after the phone call, that after the phone call, she heard the voice and killed the children. But there's a few things about that don't make sense. First is what she told Dr. Satoff, that when she gets the call, she's at the fridge getting chicken nuggets out of the fridge to make dinner. You heard from Patrick, when he's leaving, Dawson is sitting on the couch eating chicken nuggets and green beans out of a bowl. There's the crime scene photo of 2 bowls on the couch. Yes, the pink one seems to have some vegetables in it, but there's the blue one there as well. And Patrick saw Dawson eating the chicken nuggets and green beans. So why would the defendant
Is he eating more?
make that up? Why would she say she's doing that during the phone call?
He wants
Because
more.
if she's already killed the kids because of a voice and being compelled and it being against her will and she's like a puppet, then she can't get a call and miss it and then call the person back and have a conversation and then hang up. A puppet can't do those things. Those are decisions and choices and actions that she's controlling. So she has to explain away the phone call because her behavior and her ability to have the phone call don't make sense if she's being compelled by her voice, if she's not in control. And you, further on that, you have the phone. You have the flights climbed. There were 2 flights climbed. You can see, you have Ian Whiffin's report. You can see there were 2 flights climbed. The first ends at 5:33. So it makes sense that she has killed the kids in the basement and she has come up the stairs. And at 5:33, she's in the kitchen and she's getting the knife. And then Patrick calls. Everything she's done, everything from the research to making sure what they have, to telling him to get it, to making sure it's on stock, all of that, and he still calls her, he still interrupts her. And then she gets the knife and she goes upstairs and she's at the top of the stairs by 5:38. So the phone calls from 5:33 to just before 5:35. So if you want to believe that the voice happened after the call, and the killing of the kids happened after the call, between 5:33 and 5:38, she doesn't go down and come back up and come back up and come back up. There's nothing on that phone about that. And there wouldn't be enough time for her to bring those kids down to the basement and strangle each one in 3 minutes. You heard from the doctors, and Dr. Laposado included, it could take up to 30 seconds for each child to go unconscious. And then strangulation would have to continue for another 1 to 2 minutes to cause death. And Dr. Laposado wanted you to believe that the band could just stay there around their necks by themselves. But you have the bands. They're exercise bands. You pull them, they resist, you let go, they snap back. I had to hold them up to show her in circles like around someone's neck. And when I let go, they expanded. They don't stay around someone's neck on their own. You have to pull them. And you know they weren't knotted. Patrick never testified that they were knotted. So I'll take this one. He testified that he didn't have a clear memory.
Whoa.
But he remembered that they were possibly looped. And I asked him, like, when you're tying your shoes.
She just took a quarter off the table of Reds. You have to hand it to her. That's a ballsy move.
They're not knotted, not
Holy
tied.
shit.
But even his memory wasn't the best. You heard him on that call. And that's why we had to play the call for you, because you could hear him. You could hear when he found each kid. And you knew that he had the phone with him when he found each kid, because his voice, it never sounded like he was in another room. It always sounded so.
Her voice is very
painfully
interesting to me.
there. And so you know he's holding the phone and he's not untying knots.
She's pleading with the jury. She's not talking to them.
In that short amount of time. And then you have the firefighters looking in the window, seeing him with Dawson. And he's not untying a knot or unlooping something. They say
Allan Jackson, folks, joining us right after this to break down the closings. You heard me right.
that's why you had to listen to the 911, to show that she did stand over their limp bodies and strangle them for 1 to 2 minutes after they went unconscious. Because those weren't knotted, they weren't tied. They don't just stay there on their own. And even if you wanted to believe that at 5:38, she goes upstairs and puts the phone on the bed, and then she goes down and kills the kids, and she does everything. 5:38 to just after 6 p.m. because he's making the call to her at 6:09. There's not enough time between 5:38 and just after 6 p.m. to kill all 3 kids, to get the knife, to take the pills, to cut herself, to bleed, to go out of the window, to stop bleeding, and Patrick to get there. In 20 odd minutes, it's not enough time. So you know she killed those kids as soon as he left. And when she got the call from him, she had already strangled them. And she didn't tell him. She didn't ask for help. She didn't say, oh my God, what have I done? She's a nurse. She didn't go down and try to do CPR and help them. No, she lied. She stayed calm. She presented herself as normal. She had complete control over her behavior and her emotions. She had a normal conversation with him because she didn't want him coming home, because she needed to finish her plan. She still had to kill herself. So why did she do it?
Well, what do I think?
Your defense would have you believe
She's
that
saying not only was it,
a mother who was this good
did she
and
know
loved
what she
her
was
kids this
doing, but
much
she
would
actually
not
was a
deny it.
mastermind who
Would
planned it
never
out
harm
in
her kids this
detail.
way unless she
So,
was so mentally ill that she was
She's painting a
hearing these
picture of
command voices
psychosis
and
the
had no
other
choice.
way, psychotically detailed,
But
and I mean,
You
that's
know
just a
that's not the
stretch.
world we live in. Dr. Resnick told
The
you.
better argument would be that she
Most
had
women who
enough
kill their
awareness.
children
She's
who
saying
are
she had total and
in child
complete
abuse.
awareness.
Most women who kill their children don't do it because of mental illness. Mothers kill their children, and it's horrible and it's awful, but it happens. So why did she specifically do it? She was depressed. She was exhausted. She was done. She didn't want to try anymore. She felt damaged. But those kids were her protective factor. Those kids were keeping her from ending her misery. And so she had to remove the protective factor. And I'm not saying she was happy about it. I'm saying that it was what she had to do to end her misery. But it was a choice. It was a choice. She could have kept trying. She could have, moved down to her mother's. She could have killed herself and left her kids alive. But it was a choice to take them with her. It was a horrible choice. And it's a choice that we don't want to think about that a mother could make, because that doesn't make us feel safe or comfortable in this world. But it's a choice she made. She knew it was wrong because she sent Patrick out to do it. She could conform her behavior because she waited until he was gone and didn't tell him what was going on those phone calls, didn't call 911 for help, didn't lock herself in a bathroom upon hearing this voice. She knew it was wrong. She didn't take advantage of this situation. She created this situation, this opportunity to do what she wanted. And when she woke in the hospital and she knew she was alive and the kids weren't, she knew what she did was wrong. She said she felt horrified. And then, while still with a tube in her throat, she's asking, do I have a lawyer? And it's not what defense said. It was after surgery and she's delirious. Look at the records. She had surgery on the 27th. She's asking if she has a lawyer on the 26th. Do I have a lawyer? Because she knows what she did was wrong. And then we get the justification, the excuse of the voice. And there are a few reasons why the voice doesn't make sense. The first is she immediately obeyed it. Dr. Resnick, their expert, the one who knows everything about postpartum psychosis, he teaches other psychiatrists and psychologists. He writes books and chapters and articles about how this is a huge red flag. If someone immediately obeys a voice. You heard him talk about Andrea Yates, about how she heard voices to kill her children for months. And what did she do? She committed herself 5 times. She tried to kill herself twice to avoid harming her children. It is said that was all accurate.
Let's move on from that.
Here comes Billy Sullivan,
Lindsay
interjecting.
Clancy hears his voice one time and does it.
That's how it works.
Doesn't try to lock herself in the bathroom.
It's called
call
psychosis,
Patrick,
and it's
call
acute.
911. Doesn't try to
People don't live in it.
leave. You know, yeah, leaving little children alone for 20, 30 minutes, not the greatest option, but it's better than killing them. She doesn't try any tactics to avoid the voice. She just obeys. Another red flag that Resnick was asked about and teaches and writes about is that she only heard the voice one time. She never heard it before, and she hasn't heard it since. So how that works. It's a red flag that she's making up the voice. Another one is that what she said, the voice told her isn't consistent. At the hospital, she says the voice said, you have to kill your children so you can kill yourself because they'll suffer without you. What she tells a lot of the doctors is, it says, this is your last chance. You have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself. And then she tells the chaplain, you have to, a third version, you have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself because they're in danger. There's these 3 different versions. Another flag red flag, it doesn't make sense that the voice, she's saying the voice says all these different things. And then the fourth thing that doesn't make sense about the voice is that it's vague in its command. It doesn't tell her how to kill the kids, where, with what, nothing. It says kill the kids so you can kill yourself. So she had to choose where, the basement. She had to choose how, strangulation. She had to choose with what, exercise ban. Choose again, exercise ban. Choose again, exercise ban. She had to choose how to kill herself. Now, if you're being compelled by this voice and you have no free will whatsoever, you're just doing, your body's acting on the voice, why wouldn't you just kill yourself the same way you killed the children? You strangled them, you hang yourself. That's acting on compulsion, that's no choice. She tried 3 different ways. And none of them similar to what happened to the kids. And I'll take this other quarter now and explain to you why we got into the superficiality of the wounds and why we got into the height of the window and why we got into how she didn't take enough pills to actually kill herself. We're not saying she didn't want to kill herself. We're talking about that 3rd prong of suicidality that Dr. Satoff talked about. Remember, he talked about aloneness and feeling burdensome, but that 3rd category, capability. She wanted to kill herself, but her natural instinct to live was fighting against that. So she took pills, but you heard the toxicologists, they were all at therapeutic levels or below, except the Seroquel, which was a little elevated. She cut herself, but you saw the cuts on the meaty part of her arm horizontally. No arteries, no major blood vessels. Didn't need to be stitched the next day. The one on her neck didn't need to be stitched at all. She knew as a nurse, those weren't going to kill her, but she was trying. And then going out of the window, 12, 13 feet. She landed the wrong way and ended up paralyzed on the frozen ground. But, you know, the idea that falling out of a 12-foot window is going to definitely kill you, not necessarily.
Is this the way
And so
she talks,
she
or
wanted
is
to-
she
she was trying.
acting
She was trying
pained
all
and
these
like it's so hurtful and painful to her too, or is she
She
talk
just
like
couldn't
this?
get over that 3rd prong, the capability of actually killing herself. And that goes against it being a voice. Because if she's compelled to do it,
This
if
is a
this voice is
long and
making her
weaving
do it,
theory.
she would just
This
do
is
it.
what she was thinking and
There would
doing.
be no
How-
fight.
It's
There would
all
be no
speculative.
struggle. There would be no resistance to dying. But there was. I guess the 3rd one
She
is Dr.
lacks emotion.
Zeisel. We've never said that he told
She takes
the
the
defendant
last
what to
quarter.
say.
Look at her go.
Not one
Gotta hand it
witness,
to her for
not
that.
one piece of evidence. The only person that said that Dr.
That's called
Zeisel,
spontaneous.
that we were trying to say Dr. Zeisel told her to make up the voice is defense counsel. He's the only one that asked about it. He's the only one that brought it up. We have never said that in this courtroom.
Yeah, he did.
And no witness has said that we've asked. She knew what she did was wrong. She could conform her behavior to the law and chose not to. And she didn't expect to have any consequences because she expected to die with her children. And we get to what we have to prove is that first degree is deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty. You know it was deliberate premeditation because of the way she killed them and the way they died. And the order
Oh, God.
also
Look at
shows a
Lindsay.
rationality. The order she killed them in.
Look at the shot of her face.
Cora and Dawson are older.
She's
If
relived
she
this
had
so many
tried
times,
to
endlessly.
strangle
It's
one
like
in
a
front of
loop.
the other, they would have known this is bad. And they would have tried to intervene or run and hide. And she had a very limited time. She didn't have time to try to find a child who ran off and hid. So taking Dawson first and moving him to a separate room, having Cora stay with Callan and having Dawson go in another room, that's rational. That makes sense. That's ordered thinking. And we didn't show you that post that she made about Dawson being a handful and not being compliant to show she was a bad mom. We showed it to you because it proves she knew that he was a handful.
Got a great report of the
He
jury
was less likely to be
and what
compliant, to
they're-
just go along.
who's
She
on it
knew that he
and what
might
they're feeling.
struggle. And so it made sense rationally to remove him and separate him first and kill him first. And she brought him into that room, into the office, and closed the door. And she wrapped that band around his little neck.
Jesus, this woman.
And she squeezed until he was unconscious. As the blood's pooling in his face and causing those blood vessels to burst,
Jesus.
causing him pain and panic and confusion. And defense calls Dr. La Posada to say, no, it wasn't 20 or 30 seconds. It was only 5 or 10 seconds that until he went unconscious. I'm sorry, how many seconds is it okay for them to have been in pain and panic and confusion? How about it wasn't okay for 1 second for any of those children to feel that? And they all felt it, all for up to 30 seconds. And then she continued strangling their limp bodies for 1 to 2 minutes to make sure they were dead. Deliberate premeditation. And then extreme atrocity and cruelty. The indifference that she showed to their pain.
She's
to their
struggling with the
struggle,
first chair syndrome here. A first chair
their
lawyer can
suffering.
really present that. How
Leaving
long
them
is it
there on the
okay
floor with
for
the
a
bands
child
around
to
their necks,
feel?
completely indifferent.
She's a second
because she
chair
had a
lawyer.
plan
That's the
and she was
problem.
following it through.
She can't sell that
Just
moment.
think of that. The being strangled and the pain and the confusion that they're going through, and it's being done by their mom. Their mom is the one that's hurting them. Their mom is the one that's killing them. That's extreme atrocity and cruelty. She didn't see them in that moment as individual human beings with rights, with dreams, with futures, individually belonging to them. You heard about the 3 kids. Cora wanted to be a doctor and a mom. Dawson wanted to be a firefighter. Allan never got the chance to dream. Who knows what future he would have dreamed for himself.
Look at Lindsay.
She killed them, and she left them there on the floor with the bands around their necks. She didn't bring them up to their beds and put them with their favorite stuffed animal and cover them up gently and lovingly, leaving them peacefully there. No. She left them discarded on the basement floor like broken toys because she was done playing the game. You know to a moral certainty she is guilty.
Wow, closings are over.
All right, thank you, counsel.
All right, Judge
No,
Billy Sullivan,
Mr.
set the
Jury,
stage.
Can sit here for a while. Anybody need a short break? I think that would. All right. So we're going to return now to the instructions that I have.
Okay.
In rereading my instructions, I just kind of want to make sure that something's clear. So I'm going to ask you to go back to page 6. I think we were talking about murder in the second degree. Everybody get there.
Okay.
All right. And what I just kind of wanted to make clear, that you may consider the defendant's mental condition at the time of the killing, including any credible evidence of mental impairment or the effect on the defendant of her consumption of prescription drugs, in determining any of the elements in the murder in the second degree charge as well. I mentioned that for some of the others, but and specifically for the charge in murder second degree, there's an element regarding intent. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to make that clear. Probably is suggested in that, but as I read through it, I just kind of wanted to remind you that you can, as I said, you can consider the defendant's mental condition at the time of the killing, including any credible evidence of mental impairment or the effect on the defendant of her consumption of prescription drugs, in determining the elements in murder in the second degree. All right. So I hope that cleared things up rather than confusing you any. Now I'm going to go to the general principles in regards to this case. All right. Now,
All right.
as I said to you before, I'm incorporating the instructions that I gave earlier before the closing arguments with these instructions. So I want to talk about the presumption of innocence and the burden of proof. Once again, the indictments against Ms. Clancy are only an accusation. They're not evidence. The defendant has denied that she's guilty of the crimes charged in these indictments. The law presumes the defendant to be innocent of the charges against her. This presumption of innocence is a rule of law that compels you to find the defendant not guilty unless and until the Commonwealth produces evidence from whatever source.
As soon as Billy's done here, Allan Jackson, the great criminal defense attorney, will be joining us to break some of this down.
Required to call any witnesses or produce any evidence, since she is presumed to be innocent. The presumption of innocence stays with the defendant unless and until the evidence convinces you unanimously as a jury that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. It requires you to find the defendant not guilty unless your guilt has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Your verdict, whether it is guilty or not guilty, must be unanimous. All right. Now, reasonable doubt. The burden is on the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the charges made against her, as I just told you. But what is proof beyond a reasonable doubt? Well, the term is often used and probably pretty well understood, though it's not easily
All
defined.
right, we know what he's talking about here. Let's bring up. This is unbelievable. This is just unbelievable. Look at Big Red, camera sitting on him right there. I thought Big Red did a great job. His visuals were incredible. He had the poster board closing. I mean, it's going to be remembered in these parts for a long time. He was very good at painting visuals of her suffering and pain. If they were auditioning for roles in, and much of it is performance, you've got to be able to move the jury. And I thought Reddington was, I felt her pain. I felt what this woman was, feeling and suffering, and the psychosis and the confusion and the exasperation and the desperation. He was very good at making you feel that. Not only the poster boards, but the drawer. I mean, the bedside drawer he brought with him, and the medicine bag full of medications that was in there next to it. He talking about, talking to authorities and psychiatrists and doctors and physicians afterwards, saying she couldn't have done it. Her throat was crushed. Everybody has a problem with the fact that She was able to describe very clearly to Patrick everything, but of course to no one else. His locality, his connectivity with the jury is fascinating because he's very much one of them. I also want to give some points to Jennifer Sprague, the prosecutor. She's authentic too. She may not be as likable and chummy and warm with Big Red, but when Big Red was going, talking about Dr. Shah, and he said, he was wicked impressive. It's just, the use of the local dialect is incredible. Did he suggest at one point that Patrick was guilty? I mean, I was like, he kind of seemed to be questioning Patrick. I don't think you can tell Big Red doesn't like Patrick Clancy because he keeps, without directly accusing him, which would take the case in a whole different direction and be a total mess. He keeps shining how do you shine shade? But he keeps exposing what he thinks is. I can tell they're not friends. Do you guys think Patrick should be there? I don't know. I don't think he's there. I don't think he's been there the whole time. Some people think, did he quit on her? Should he be standing by his wife's side? I don't know. He lost his kids, man. He lost 3 of his kids. I don't think, the only thing he can do is salvage a life for himself. Now, whether he got that going before Lindsay, before all of this happened, the timing of his new relationship, who knows? Doesn't look great. My gut tells me it's not great. But at this point, I would say, to go on and to at least try and salvage and start a new life is understandable. It doesn't make me like him much. When Big Red turned to the rebuttal witnesses, oh my Lord, that was fantastic. His disdain for Avram Mack is just, you can still feel it. And at one point, Big Red turns to the police, to the cops in the courtroom, and he looks at them and he points right at them and goes, shame, basically shame on you guys for a botched investigation. And, Massachusetts and the Commonwealth, there's not much room for more botched investigations. He painted a nice picture of Dr. Zeisel. The third of 3 older men who are showing some real sensitivity in here. 1 being the judge, 2 being, of course, Kevin Reddington. But Dr. Zeisel, while Reddington reminds all of us that these 5 rebuttal witnesses and mostly Heilbrunn and Satov, saw Lindsay Clancy in April of 2026, 3 years after the fact, to then say that she knew what she was doing at the time and to deliver all their diagnoses, which don't add up. They're all different. The 5, psychiatrists, doctors we saw in the last week all had different diagnoses. But Zeisel was painted in a nice light there. I thought he did a good job with that this man has been by her side for 3 years. He won't leave her. That was moving. And the rebuttal witnesses, saw her for 2 days, 3 years later. When he read her diary notes, I thought that was powerful. He was she's having horrible thoughts. She's reading horrible thoughts as she used to write. And then as, January wore on, he said chicken scratch. It became chicken scratch because her mind was gone, fried from all the drugs. One thing I love about Reddington is the way he calls her young lady, all the time.
Right.
That's
proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not
amazing.
mean proof beyond all possible doubt.
Yeah, just listening into Billy Reddington, still going through a lot of the details and logistics going forward. Another great, when he calls her young lady, when he calls her kid, but also he his references are so relatable. He goes to The Shining and Jack Nicholson, right? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Like he's The Shining. I'll never forget that. He did like I mentioned earlier, very strong job of painting a picture of Lindsay's exasperation and her desperation. What I found very fascinating was what he did not say. Complete omission of the mortal sin, of the use of the interpretation of the Catholic faith and the shaming of Lindsay Clancy by the prosecution and prosecutorial witness for weaponizing her faith against her. That I found interesting. Let's see where we are right now. In the trial seems to be a pause right here.
This is your understanding and satisfies your reason and judgment as jurors who are sworn
Still
to
more
act
jury instruction.
conscientiously.
Okay. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Reddington. Here's what's going on in the room, what the jury looks like. Just want to read a description because you wonder, here's from someone who was inside and has been for a while. I'm like, okay, here we go. You start with the jury is on the left side of the gallery. You're going to start with, there's an old woman, and then the woman in her 40s, a brunette. She's always taking notes and looking at the media. There's a woman on the jury who's in her 40s and like taking notes and looking at the media to see their reaction. She really doesn't like the prosecution. Then there's this nasty old woman next to her. She's in her 70s. She hates everyone, including herself. She's always very rude. And you just like, you have this. Okay, so she's exasperated. She's rolling her eyes. You got a woman in her 40s, a woman in her 70s. Now you got an older man who wears a suit every day with like a goatee beard. He's fabulous. He really doesn't like the prosecution. And then there's just a few other women there. Then if you go into the front row on the right side, I believe, he's the jury foreman. There's a man there. The goatee man is the jury foreman. They only have one person of color on the jury, and it's a black man, and he sits forward every single time when the prosecution starts lying, and like he gestures. And there he is. A pregnant woman is in there too. Wow, there's a pregnant woman on the jury. She's like 7 months pregnant and blonde. She's young, and it's amazing, believe it or not. Then there's 3 or 4 young college-aged kids in there. Oh, this is fascinating. They're all like maybe 21, 22 years old. Wow. Holy mackerel, that's incredible that a decision like this is going to come down to 4 college kids. Or not down to them alone, but in a major way. Anyway, we've seen a lot here. I see somebody in the backstage. If I'm not wrong, let's pull down the trial right there. And I'm just going to say, a man who needs no further introduction. Let's react right now to what happened with the prosecution and the defense in the closings with a man who knows this area well and has closed like nobody can close many times before. Our friend Allan Jackson. Allan, how are you, my friend? What are your feelings?
He needs to unmute his mic.
I
He's
think your
muted.
mic is muted. I think your mic is muted right there. Got it? Anyway, while Allan figures out the microphone, interesting look at the jury, huh?
Billy, can you hear me at this point?
I can. Audio's a little muffled, but I think I got you. Let's try it. Say something to me. Say.
How about now?
Oh, there you go, big guy. Perfect.
Now I can't hear you.
Oh my
I can read those lips.
You can't hear me.
No. For some reason, I don't know why.
Oh my God. Well, hold on. Let's see if we can figure this out. Harry, you'll stop smiling and enjoying this and go to ChatGPT and figure it out.
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm sorry. I'm on it.
Yeah, Harry's sitting there laughing like, oh, they can't hear each other. All right, Harry, you'll figure that out with Allan. He can't hear me. If anybody has a suggestion, but we will we'll try to. Interesting portrayal of the jury. There's a little bit more coming. Also, the old woman, she keeps clutching her cross. Now that's interesting. Old woman keeps clutching her cross that she wears when the Commonwealth said to sue Clancy about murder being a mortal sin. She grabbed her cross. Uh-oh. Okay, that could be trouble. She was the initial reason we think that the judge jumped up so fast. So again, not sure if that helps, but the pregnant woman is the reason we had such a long break on Patrick's day. Patrick and her both had panic attacks, and the EMTs were with them. So one of the jury had a panic attack. That's incredible. Oh, there's Harry. How are you?
Allan is ready. I present to you, Allan.
Okay. Allan, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
You
we're all
can.
good. We're all good.
All right, man who needs no introduction, reacting to the prosecution close and the defense close today. Big Red and Jennifer Sprague squaring off in Plymouth County. It is the end of the Lindsay Clancy trial. Allan, your first thoughts, and I think you know Kevin a bit.
I do.
Do you know Jennifer, and are you at all familiar with this judge?
I'm not familiar with the judge, and I don't know either of the prosecutors. I do know Kevin, a very, very talented lawyer, very good lawyer. He's iconic in that area, in the New England area. He's been around for a long time. He's tried some huge cases. He's known to be big and brash and bombastic and extremely intelligent and very, very good in front of a jury. Look, no doubt about it on both sides. It's an extremely emotional case. It is a very, very tough job that the jurors have to deal with, because they're dealing with an issue that most of us have read about sometime. Maybe you've seen a movie about it. Maybe you've read a crime story about it. But most people aren't confronted with this kind of emotion. A mother killing her children and then trying to kill herself. It's a very tough case. I thought Kevin did a masterful job of setting the tone of manipulation. That was his theme. What you heard from the prosecution was a manipulation of the facts, a manipulation of the law, a manipulation of how the witnesses testified, how they took and spun and twisted certain evidence to their benefit in order to make Lindsay look guilty.
Like this
The
total
realities.
premeditation. They talked about not only was she premeditated, but she was like I called it psychotic the other way, like psychotically detailed and premeditated.
Right.
Which I think that's a I didn't need, did they need
No,
to go for that big of a bomb right there?
probably not. I know they feel like they are swimming against the tide. The prosecutors do. They should. If they don't know that, they should know that they're swimming against the tide, because people don't do this. Like the natural instinct of someone listening to this is, if mom kills their 3 toddlers, their 3 little ones, she's got to be crazy. She's got to be psychotic, because no normal person would do that. And that is absolutely true. I mean, one of the things that struck me about the prosecution's opening salvos was being an apologist for an extraordinarily broken medical, psychological system or psychiatric system. It's like the medical industrial complex completely let Lindsay Clancy down. How many more times does she need to beg for help and not get it? How many more times does she need to say to doctor after doctor after doctor, primary care physician after primary care physician, I need help. I don't feel right. Something's not right here. I need help. I'm seeking and I'm searching for help. And their response, by and large, oftentimes was, well, are you psychotic? And if she said, no, I don't think I'm I don't know, I'm not a doctor, they'd go, oh, okay, well then here's a pill. Go, call me in 6 weeks and let me know how you're feeling. That's not the kind of help that she was seeking or that she needed. So for the prosecution to say, well, their first shot across the bow was the defense wants to just blame it on this medical industrial complex, and that's not on trial here. Yes, it is on trial here. And if you think it's not, then you're missing something about the zeitgeist of this issue, the communal discussion about this issue. Yes, the medical industrial complex, psychiatry, psychology, the help that people desperately need from a mental health standpoint, that is on trial here. And I think Kevin did an outstanding job of putting that on trial here.
What about all
Clearly
the exhibits
establishing
in there? I mean, Allan, I went through, I want to talk more about Reddington in detail, but the exhibits all over the floor. He's got poster board everywhere. He's got this bedside drawer. He's got bags of pills. I mean, these are all very effective things. He brought quarters out on the table. To Jennifer Sprague's credit, she was removing the quarters one at a time as she made her point. This is a woman with very little personality, but at this moment, that was a spontaneous, because some of this stuff is performative. And then I read the jury who's on there. Can you believe this? I wonder what you would do. Like from my person inside the court, 4 college-age kids, 1 young pregnant woman, an older woman who's pissed off but clutching her cross, and we heard mortal sin, we heard the Catholic faith and weaponized against Lindsay. I mean, when you're doing your closing, and are you thinking about, oh God, these points belong to this group of people, this point belongs to that person?
100%. Yeah. By the time you get to a closing argument, you've done, look, as a trial lawyer, I feel very strongly that you shouldn't just sit there and stare at the jurors. It's very uncomfortable for them. It's invading their space. It's invading their province. But peripherally and just through almost osmosis, you learn who your jurors are as a trial lawyer over the course of hours and days and weeks, in some cases, months in other cases. The last case I had out on the East Coast was months long, and I knew the jurors. I thought I knew the jurors very, very well. So to your point, yes, if I'm making a point about morality and there's someone that I've seen every single day walk in with a cross and dressed a certain way and maybe carries him or herself with a certain countenance, and I feel like there's a religiosity or a moral fiber or fabric that is built around this person, yeah, I'm going to direct certain comments to that person. If someone's leaning back and crossing their arms, and I've seen them roll their eyes during certain witnesses or things of that nature, and I'm making a point about that witness or the credibility of those witnesses, I will direct my comments directly. I will make eye contact and lock eyes with that witness for that very specific purpose. I might even say something in closing argument. Some of you might not have appreciated certain testimony that came in, but here's the reason why that testimony is credible and why it follows follows our theory. And if you're following the law and following the facts, this needs to be believed. I'll make those points. I'm assuming that Kevin, very, very, very polished, and when I say polished, I mean very experienced, very different styles that he and I have, but he's a very experienced trial lawyer, and I'm sure he was directing certain comments to certain jurors to emphasize certain points, because he knows once you take the bit out of the horse's mouth, right, and you unbridle that horse, that jury goes back. You realize there's a loss of control. That jury goes back into a deliberation room, and you've lost all control. You have one last chance to make a point and to try to get a jury or a juror to make your points back in the deliberation room. So I'm sure Kevin was doing that in a very, very effective way.
I thought also Jennifer Sprague was better than I thought she'd be. I mean, I thought she was coming out with all those kinds of notes.
She was good. No, she was good. She was very prepared. Yeah, she was good.
Very prepared.
And I will say you said this is performative to a certain degree. The courtroom there is a certain amount of theater to a courtroom, every single courtroom. If you're going to do something like theatrical, like set quarters out on the table, you better have your ducks in a row such that someone can't use that against you and pull those quarters off and make their point by using your theater against you. If I've done this before where I've walked up to a whiteboard and leave an empty whiteboard and have a big, bold red or black marker and set a marker down right in front of my opponent to say, there's a couple of questions that they can't answer. And if they don't answer it, then that tells you everything you need to know about their case. And I'll set the marker right in front of them. They don't even have to use their paper. They don't have to use their marker. I'll give them the marker and set it down. But when I've done that, I know they can't answer that question, and they'll set it aside.
Reddington should have taken his quarters to quarters with him. But one thing he's definitely more of a personality. He connected with the,
for sure,
with the jury.
And that's the style. And there's I think it's very thought out by him. He's going to have all these exhibits. He's not worried about the hyper polish of having something, with square corners. He's going to set a bag of evidence over here, and he's going to grab something off the floor there, and he's going to walk up to the jury and walk back. He's developing a chemistry with that jury as best he can. So he's not just robotically just repeating lines. He's going to try to develop as much chemistry as he can. That's his style. He's very good at it.
What do you think of, I thought his connection also, not just with the jury, very strong, and with the audience. Clearly people out in, social media land love the guy, but he seems to know the judge. I feel like they've, like they used to play like softball together or something. I mean, I'm making that up, but I feel like the judge sort of takes his cues from Big Red. He's kind of like, the judge will be like, we're going to take a recess here, right? Should we take a recess, Kev? And like he's looking at Reddington and Reddington. Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a real connection between them.
They're definitely colleagues. They're of the same generation. They
know each other.
I don't know that they know each other. I have no idea, but I would certainly, if Kevin's been around forever, the judge has been around forever, it's almost impossible. And that one thing about the Boston area, the greater Boston area, everybody knows everybody. I mean, it's just unfathomable to me how everybody can know everybody. You walk into a restaurant, even I got to the point where I would rarely go out to a restaurant or something that I didn't see somebody that I even knew. And I've only been there a couple of years. So yeah, I'm sure they are professional colleagues and have an enormous amount of respect for one another.
What are the possible options here? We don't know the jurors. I read a little bit about them, but we've heard the closing. We've on both sides. If you had to call it.
Oh, I don't think that 12 people are going to find Lindsay Clancy guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If I had to handicap this, I don't see it happening. I don't think that the evidence is there for the prosecution. As you indicated, the prosecutor did a yeoman's job. She did a very workmanlike job of presenting her closing argument, saving the most emotional portion of it for very, very, very last. The part where she described the ligatures around the children's necks, et cetera. But she also basically was spending most of her time excusing away the rampant failures of the medical industry,
she was blaming Lindsay for the drugs. In fact, she was like, "Oh, right. I mean, I think I wrote
as if she's supposed to, as if she's supposed to know what she's taking, what she's not taking. She's also not supposed to be just based on self-reporting. You can't prescribe medication, and you can't engage in robust and thorough medical care when it comes to mental health issues. Like she said, you can't see a mental health issue. It's not like a cut that you can suture. You have to dig in deep. And just allowing Lindsay to sort of self-report and then turning around and blaming Lindsay when she says, no, I wasn't being completely honest about this, or I omitted that, or I didn't want Patrick to even know that I was on Prozac back in the day. All of those things are indicative of someone who is sliding down the scale of mental health disease, of being in the clutches of a serious mental health devolvement, an issue that is devolving daily, weekly, yearly, to the point that it got to the point that she was hearing things, feeling things that she could no longer control. And to that point, the prosecution made this big deal of talking about the voices, or the voice. that, well, the voice said different things and the voice said this and the voice said that, almost as if there's a speaker on your shoulder and you turn the volume up and down and the voice is speaking into your ear. That's not how internal mechanisms work when you quote unquote hear voices. That's not what is meant by that. You don't necessarily hear a specific voice with a tone and a tenor talking to you. It's a thought. It's something that's happening inside your head. It's a thought. It's a feeling. It's overwhelming you if you are in the clutches of a psychotic episode or suffering from psychosis. But it's not like, okay, well, the voice on day one said, kill your kids and then kill yourself. And on day two, the voice said, you need to kill yourself, but you need to kill your kids first. It doesn't work. You can't attack that by saying, well, the voice said two different things, so you can't believe that there was ever a voice in the first place. It is an overwhelming thought. It's a feeling. It's a sense that you get, and there's no speaker in your head that's turned on with a male voice or a female voice necessarily, or a child's voice or an adult's voice. It's a feeling and a thought, and we lack as human beings the ability to put a word to that. So what we end up doing is calling it a voice. It's a voice that told me to do something. It's an overwhelming impulse that comes from a psychotic episode or psychosis that you're in the clutches of. And that impulse cannot be controlled because it is a mental illness. And you cannot, under the law, you cannot be held responsible for your conduct if you are operating under the influence of a mental health disease that is controlling you rather than you controlling it.
Well, you said it's going to be hard for 12 people. The idea that 12 people are going to come together and think that she premeditatedly did this. She knew what she was doing.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will.
Will
Is there
12
one
people
person
come
on the
together?
jury who can hang it and say, yeah, I think she's guilty because the children, it's just too emotional for me. I can't vote that she's not responsible. She's not criminally liable. Maybe there's a juror who will say that. I don't think that there's 12 who are going to say that.
Is there 12 the other way?
Yeah, I think there are. I think there's a good chance that that Lindsay Clancy will be determined to not be to lack the mental the mens rea to have premeditated the death of those children.
Okay. God, it's just
we'll see. I don't know, and I don't know how quick the verdict's going to be either. It's an emotional case. It's a big case. These jurors tend to take every case very seriously. They will absolutely take this case very, very, very seriously. I expect that they'll go through a lot of the evidence. They'll probably ask for readback here or there from this expert or that expert. It was very expert driven, the entire trial. So my sense is it's not going to be a super quick verdict. But my gut reaction, if I had to handicap this, is the prosecution has not met their burden. Not even close. It's
There's your thumbnail, Harry.
What's that?
I said, I'm speaking like inside baseball. I said, there's your thumbnail, Harry. Talking to Harry, my producer, I said, Allan Jackson makes the call. Prosecution has not met, in your opinion, it's just an opinion, but has not met the burden. It's a big burden. It's a big burden in this case. You know, I was talking to Dr. Drew yesterday, and I was just like, my feeling is she's in jail. I mean, if this jury sits there and goes, absolutely, we're all better off if we send Lindsay Clancy to jail for first-degree murder. We're all better. I got a feeling, what they're seeing is a massive breakdown in the psychiatric field, in the medical field, and in our whole system, and our lack of primary care, and just the confusion and the prescriptions and all this crap. It's scary because they're all thinking, geez, that could be my kid. That could be me. Like, and nobody knows, their ass from their face on this thing. So what's really on trial to me is the system, is the medical, complex here.
The medical complex, exactly.
That's on trial. So if you just send her to jail, you're punting on that type of a referendum.
And it's happened too often. The justice system is very poorly equipped to handle mental health issues. It just is. There's just no two ways about it. I've been in the justice system for over 30 years, and it's just a very, very it's a very foreign thing to the justice system. The justice system looks at conduct. You either did something and that's against the law, or you didn't do something and that's against the law. That is binary. This kind of case tests the justice system and stretches it to its breaking point, because you cannot say, look, Kevin Reddington took a position very early on by pleading the case this way, conceding that she killed those 3 kids. But that is only the beginning of the inquiry. That is not the end of the inquiry. The prosecution sees this like to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, okay, well, she killed the kids, so she's got to go to jail. That is not the end of the inquiry. Like you said, Billy, very articulately, the system, the medical industrial complex is on trial because how much more, based on the evidence that I heard, how much more was Lindsay expected to do to cry out for help? It wasn't just to cry out for help, like to her husband or to her best friend or in a journal. She went to the medical professionals and she said, I need to check myself in. No, turned away. I need to come in. I cannot be trusted with myself. No, go away. And then this happens, this tragedy happens. And the prosecution comes back and says, well, last time I checked, she killed the kids. But that's not the real inquiry. The inquiry is, did she understand the character and quality of her conduct in the moment that she took those kids' lives? And I don't believe that
I don't think the
prosecution has proved it.
No, I don't. They had a hard time even broaching it.
Right.
It seems we're looking at a picture of Reddington here as I'll put it up there, but he looks like he's taking a nap. No, he's back. He might be. I don't know what's going on with Big Red right there, but the judge is still kind of giving his take.
Yeah.
It's sort of fascinating. But anyway, I don't think anyone knows this, or they do, but not enough people know. Wasn't Reddington involved in the Karen Reed trial? Didn't he?
Yeah. We're not necessarily adverse to each other, other than he represented a witness in the Karen Reed trial.
And McCabe.
Jennifer McCabe. Yeah.
He represented McCabe. So what happened, as soon as this thing broke down, she called him, and the battle with for him was over McCabe's phone.
It was subpoenas and things of that nature. Right.
Yeah. You had to subpoena him. So, I can't imagine that he was passionately involved, but again, in Boston, everybody knows everybody. So Jennifer McCabe calls him. He had to protect the phone, which of course had the Haas long to die in cold. Boy, Reddington's been all over the town, but you had to, but that was a quick thing. You had to get the phone subpoenaed, and Reddington had to try and, keep it out of the situation, but that was over very quickly, huh?
Yeah, pretty quickly. That was not a lengthy battle at all. He came in to protect her interests in terms of fighting a subpoena that we had submitted to try to get her actual phone and get her extraction, et cetera. So it was not a lengthy battle, but it was for what it was hard fought.
Is it?
But we've never, Kevin and I have never, he's always been a gentleman to me and very nice. When I've seen him, we're very civil to one another. We don't know each other very well, but I know him by reputation, and he's got a good one.
Here, look at Diana on the screen here. Mr. Jackson, I was crying seeing your Karen Reed closing. It was brilliant. No question about that. I was bawling when all of you walked out onto the stairs, and the hugging and the family and seeing that beautiful Bill Reed, father of Karen. Jeez, what a sweet guy. He texts me stuff.
Yeah, that was that seeing Karen and Bill together was one of the most it is tattooed in my mind. I'll never forget the visual of looking over my shoulder, turning around and watching a dad hug his daughter for the first time, knowing that she has beaten this thing, that the false allegations were finally over.
Oh my God, Allan, what is this woman doing right here? She's shaking a box.
Christ Almighty! This is she's picking the alternates. She's figuring out which jurors are actually in Massachusetts. It's to me, it's very foreign because in California, we do it a very different way. We know who the 12 jurors are that we're talking to throughout the entire trial, and we might have 5 alternates. I don't know. There might be 17 jurors on the panel, but 5 of them are alternates, and we know who the alternates are from the beginning. So we also, conversely, we know who the jurors are who are going to be deliberating. In Massachusetts, they might pick 17 people. And you have no idea who the jurors are going to be until right now that the clerk is naming the names of the people who are not going. She's going to pick 5 names. If there's 17, she's going to pick 5 names. And those people are told for the first time, you're not deliberating. They're alternates. So it's a giant letdown for them.
Oh my God, they've been living in a they've been living in a Best Western for 3 weeks.
Yeah. No,
Oh, and that's
brutal.
now
It's
you don't
brutal.
even matter.
Billy, I don't know. I could not endorse this type of system. It just, to me, it's just too brutal for the jurors. The jurors should know the position that they're taking.
Listen, they're all welcome here to come and finish the job right here with me.
Yeah. So right now there are a number of jurors who are sitting there going, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? I've sat through this whole thing, and now I don't get to deliberate."
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't know, who knows what Billy Sullivan is doing. I do love the name Billy Sullivan. It's a real Boston guy.
Doesn't get any better than that. Kevin
It does-
Reddington, Billy Sullivan. Are you kidding? They almost have to be friends. How could they not be friends? If they weren't friends before, they got to be friends now.
Yeah. I want to let the chat ask a few questions here. It's a beautiful thing. The internet has many positives and negatives. One of the positives is, access for a minute to one of the great, defense attorneys. Oh, there goes Harry.
Can I please? May I? I mean, listen, we know.
Just don't fanboy too much, Harry. I've got you, to reflects on me.
Allan,
Talk to me.
Reddington hit an emotional nerve. It was clear. I mean, I was emotional watching it. How important is that connection? I mean, clearly the prosecution had 0. Reddington was pulling on everyone's heartstrings.
Yeah.
How important is that to the process?
You cannot overstate the importance of drawing the jury into the story, right? It's not, you're not just talking about numbers on a page. It's not just the antiseptic determination of what a jury instruction sounds like and applying this fact to this law. It is a story. And if you miss that opportunity in closing argument to humanize your client, to accept, look, Kevin accepted responsibility for Lindsay on her behalf. He said, we didn't run from it. We didn't hide from it. We know what happened. We know how devastating and how tragic it was, but she was not herself. It was not her that was doing this. And it was necessary for him to draw the jurors into that sort of discussion and that sort of theme and theory and thought process. He could not leave that jury with the idea that this young woman, as he called her over and over and over, I don't know if you noticed that they use this phrase in Boston a lot, and it's not pejorative at all. It's endearing to a great degree. He called her kid many times. That's a phrase that I never used growing up. And certainly as an older guy, I don't
Good kid.
I don't use that phrase with others. It's not part of my lexicon, but it's very much part of the fabric of the Boston area. And he called her kid over and over. That was by design. He's humanizing her. She's just a kid. She was doing the best she could. She had these 3 little kids. She was struggling. She was struggling with depression. She was struggling, being overwhelmed. She had these mental health issues. She had these demons that she could not exercise by herself. This kid who sits now in a wheelchair, and she will be in that prison for the rest of her life, the prison of her mind, the prison of her heart, the prison of that wheelchair, a daily reminder that she will never get over, not one day, not 1 minute, not 1 second of the rest of her life. She knows what happened. She knows the loss and the devastation, but she wasn't in her right mind when she did it. And we do not, as a society, as a civilized society, we do not criminalize illness. And this young lady, this kid, she was ill. So that's the kind of emotion that he was able to draw out and I think was extremely necessary.
We have friends at home, 60-year-old guys. I call and say hello. The response is, how you doing, kid?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah.
I'm sick.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a term of endearment, and he needed to do that with her. Of course, conversely, the prosecution needed to try to do that with the children, which is what she did at the very end when she talks about the devastation of, wrapping ligatures, these workout bands around the necks of these children, and talking about how long it takes for that tragic thing to happen. I sort of expected that she would have a stopwatch. If I were trying to make that point from an emphasis standpoint and an emotional standpoint, I might have taken a watch and one old fashioned and clicked it where you can hear the tick, 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 and waited for 30 seconds and asked the jurors to think about how long 30 seconds really is. That's pretty devastating as well. And it's incumbent upon the prosecution to try to wrestle back that emotion from the defense and the empathy that the jurors tend to feel for the defendant, and put the empathy back on the kids. It's a fight back and forth.
Jeez. Is Karen Reed been she must, she's such a smart cookie. She must have been watching this trial.
I'm sure she's watching a lot. I don't know how much of it she's watched, but she's certainly aware of it. She's certainly aware of it. We've talked a few times about some of the nuances of this case.
You look at, I think Reddington, did what he had to do.
I do too. I agree, Billy. I think
without notes, he spoke like a straight shooting Boston guy. He used the word, you talk about kid. He used young lady a bunch of times. The way he hammered, you see, Jennifer Sprague struggled. I think of this as like, there's first chair lawyers and there's second chair lawyers and third chair lawyers. Reddington's a first chair lawyer. Allan Jackson is a first chair lawyer. Jennifer Sprague is probably very bright and she could be helpful, on your team, but she's not a first chair lawyer. And when when Reddington, it lands differently when he's going, read these horrible thoughts, horrible thoughts, horrible thoughts. You feel every ounce of it when he makes his points. And when she says she knew that she couldn't wait she couldn't be patient taking her medicine. She took matters into her own hands. She couldn't stick with one provider and one plan. And it's just, it doesn't.
It lacked the emotion that Kevin was able to draw out, and he used the evidence to do it. For instance, to that point in his closing, I thought it was extremely effective to say, look at her journal. Go back and sit there and look at her journal. And she talks about, I'm having horrible thoughts, horrible thoughts, horrible thoughts. And then that devolved into gibberish just days before this is happening. That is literally a paradigm of what's happening in her head. We talk about the fact you can't see mental illness. You can see it on that page. And that's what he did, is he drew it off the page, pulled it off the page and said, look at what she's saying. This is her begging. She's begging and begging and begging. And this medical industrial complex who does not care about her and cares about the bottom line and cares about the money and cares about the insurance and, all the things that you could put them on trial for. They left her out in the cold. And this is what happens when you refuse someone who's reaching out for help, who's begging for the very help that she was entitled to. This is the result. This is the tragedy that occurs. And we don't criminalize that. It's tragic, but let's fix the problem. The problem is not putting her in prison for the rest of her life. The problem is she didn't get the help she needed.
Someone asked, should this have ever come to trial?
That's a $1 million question. I don't believe that there's a circumstance in which a case like this doesn't come to trial. Like I said, the justice system, it has to do its job, right? It has to do its job.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't think that someone would just throw their hands up and say, we've got 3 deceased little kids and a mother who tried to kill herself. Nah, we're we're not even going to worry about it.
Also,
No,
if it doesn't come
needs
to
be
trial, there is no referendum. There again, there
correct.
is no this. We're not talking about this, and we got to be talking about this.
Sometimes cases need to be tried. This case needed to be tried. It
Yeah.
needed to, like, to use your word, there needs to be a referendum, a discussion, a robust and thorough discussion about this situation. And this trial was the perfect platform to launch that discussion. But do I believe that she is legally responsible for the death of those children? I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Here's a question from Nicole. Having seen how Massachusetts juries handle forensic psych battles, how well do you think the defense neutralized professionals' claim that she was still capable of rational, goal-directed behavior?
I think that that's a really good question, very articulate
Yeah,
question.
right. I was
I
gonna
think
say
I think Kevin did a really, really nice job of dismantling the prosecution experts, and he didn't have to just beat up on them from a theatrical standpoint. He used his experts. Resnick, I think, was the lead expert on
Yeah,
his
Phil Resnick,
on his
yeah.
team. He used his experts, who trained a lot of the other people's experts, to say that this is a classic example of postpartum psychosis, not just postpartum depression, but postpartum psychosis, where you go into a psychotic state and you lose the ability to understand the character and quality of your conduct. And people misunderstand that quite a bit. And I think Kevin did a good job, along with his experts, of explaining it doesn't, well, she grabbed a band and she wrapped it around their necks and pulled it tight. So she had to know what she was doing, and knew she had enough consciousness to know that she wanted to do it while she was alone, when Patrick wasn't in the house. She used a band to do it, which is a perfect ligature. When you're going through a psychotic episode, it doesn't mean you lose the ability to understand the world around you, right? I know that I still know that this is a phone. I know that this is a microphone. I still know how to drive a car. I can still put my shoes on, right foot right, left foot left. People tend to think, well, after the incident, the person hid the weapon, or didn't call the police, or tried to cover up for the conduct. You can still understand the world around you, but in the moment, the psychosis overtakes your ability to understand the difference between right and wrong as we perceive it, and in a civilized society. You
Yeah.
lose the ability to understand the character and quality of your conduct because you believe that there is, for instance, in this case, a necessity. She had to take the lives of the kids and take them with her because she was undergoing this psychotic break, the psychotic moment. It doesn't mean that she's going to try to use a banana to kill them. Of course, she's going to use a ligature. That does not make her. It does not make her normal, for lack of a better word or phrase, in terms of her mental health. She could still be completely in the clutches of a psychotic break. And I thought Kevin did a really nice job, along with his experts, of diffusing the prosecution's experts. There's nothing their experts could say, nothing they could say about the fact that she was reaching out over and over and over, attempting to get help. There's nothing they could do about that.
I mean, how bad was that expert, Dr. Avram Mack, who just seemed,
I heard a lot of talk about him, but
Okay.
candidly, I didn't see his testimony.
Red and he were like this.
Really?
Absolute hatred of this. The YouTube clips of the two of them going back and forth, unbelievable. He can't stand it.
What was Mac's thesis? What was
He's a
he
forensic
there for?
psychiatrist who he just seemed to want to fight with Reddington every single step of the way. But
Well,
of
that's a
course,
bad look. Just on its face, that's a really bad look for an expert.
yeah, no, he wouldn't answer anything straight. He's like, answer the question, guy. Jesus.
Right.
And he just got into this cockfight with Reddington.
Right, well,
and Reddington, he's dumb enough to know that Reddington has a likability to him and is connecting with the jury. Are you not watching them? And
that plays right into Reddington's hands, especially in the closing argument when the jurors are hearkening back to how recalcitrant this expert is. I heard Reddington say over and over and over, this is complete manipulation. Like, they didn't want to answer questions. They didn't want to be confronted with the issues that are right in front of us. I'm guessing he was hearkening back to that. If these experts are just objective, scientific experts, they shouldn't even engage in a fight. Answer the question. You've got nothing to hide. If you're telling the truth, it's all going to be your opinion should be unassailable. If they're fighting, that means you're on the defensive. That means
Yeah.
you as the expert know you're on the defensive, and that plays right into a lawyer's hands.
Good question here from Casey Bradley. She says, similar to the Karen Reed case, do you think this would be a different trial if a proper investigation was done?
I did see yesterday that, interesting to that point. It's actually a very good question. I saw yesterday that Reddington asked for a Bowden instruction, and I'm extraordinarily familiar with a Bowden instruction because we got one in Karen's case because of the failure of the investigation. He did not get one, which I was interested in. I didn't watch enough of the trial to know why that was, but the judge gently and respectfully declined to give that instruction, although Kevin asked for it. So there must have been some suggestion that the case was very, very poorly investigated. When he was arguing for the Bowden instruction yesterday, Kevin said, and I didn't hear him emphasize it as much today, but he said there was failure after failure after failure after failure. These cops walked in, they see 3 dead kids, they see a woman sitting outside. The husband says she said she did it. Case closed, like done.
Case closed.
But they didn't.
He said to them, he pointed to them in the courtroom, shame.
Right. And so, I think to answer the question, similar to Karen's case, I think that does have an impact. Jurors expect they damn well should expect a level of perfection when it comes to homicide cases, especially. I mean, these are life and death cases. These are the gravity doesn't get any greater than a homicide case. And if you're going as the state, if you're going to take the position that we as a government are going to take the most precious thing we have as a citizen, which is our liberty, we're going to take that away for the rest of your life, you damn well better get it right. And I don't mean just right. You better get it perfect. And so if you don't, that should weigh very, very heavily on any jury who's weighing and balancing the value of the prosecution that's in front of them.
And that's another referendum. I mean,
Yeah,
is
right.
what we, as your case revealed, with Karen Reed.
Yeah.
That this
I think policing
investigation,
at
John,
large,
this open
I'm
and shut.
probably not, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm probably not the right person to ask, but I think prosecutions and investigations writ large in the Massachusetts area are desperately lacking, desperately wanting. I mean, now we've got the Birchmore fiasco. There's the Miles King fiasco. Karen Reed's was a fiasco. It's one after another after another. I think something needs to be done. The entire investigative complex needs to be burned down and rebuilt by somebody. I don't know who's going to do it, but the Massachusetts investigative complex is an absolute abject disaster.
I don't know enough about the Miles King situation. All I know is that my old friend Peter Murphy, the 30-year sergeant from the Canton PD, sent me a text going, "I'm over here at the Miles King trial. Man, that's happening right now." And
There's
he
a
told
hearing.
me,
I think there's a hearing today. Yeah.
He said there's a hearing. He's there. He said Adam Lally, who you faced in the first Karen Reed trial as the prosecutor, is getting absolutely destroyed.
I
But
just heard that.
Rosemary Scapicchio, who's another one of those Boston person, Rosemary Scapicchio is going to be representing Lindsay in her civil trial, her malpractice civil trial. It's got Rosemary, who's another, put her up there as a Boston personality, but she's apparently handing Lally a new one, according to Peter at this point.
Yeah. I got a text message this morning from someone I won't name that suggested the same thing, that there's some indication, at least in the hearing, what I heard was coming out is that there was some very exculpatory information that was not turned over. And Adam Lally's right in the middle of that discussion.
There's so much going on in Boston. I mean, they're just entertaining us constantly. They're keeping true crime afloat here. They're keeping Court TV in business. Keeping
you in business.
Keeping me in business. I'm fascinated by it all. Went to high school just down the road in Rhode Island. So, where is, if I'm to talk to Karen Reed, when I do, I want to know where Karen Reed becomes. She can stop having fight these things, having to fight on this front. I mean, I've never seen
God,
him.
from your mouth to God's ears. Yeah, no kidding.
She's
No
too
kidding.
smart. I'd rather be talking to her about this trial right now and getting her thoughts. But I mean, is
Right.
she? When will she be done with all of this?
I don't
This
know.
year?
These civil cases. No, it won't be this year. These civil cases have a life of their own. They take an enormous amount of time. They're slow. They slog. They go through the system very, very slowly. Unlike criminal cases, which tend to be far more expeditious. So I don't know when she's going to get done. I hope it's sooner than later. Obviously, I want her out from under the albatross of the legal system altogether. But I don't know when it's going to be done. It's not going to be anytime soon, sadly.
Yeah, it just goes on forever, right? And you get going in the Fraser Bohm case, which is out here in Los Angeles, out in Malibu. Fraser Bohm, 22-year-old kid, I think at the time, right?
He had 21 in one day. So yeah, he was 22 by one day. His birthday was the day before.
And your job is to, I mean, they're trying to go for second-degree murder. The kid was being chased allegedly by a menacing character known in the Malibu community who was road raging and chasing him, and he's trying to get away from the guy. He didn't have an ounce of alcohol in him, but he did. Car slid out and banged into some other cars around something called Dead Man's Curve, which you'd want to see repaved or at least rerouted in Malibu. And for girls in college, they were between the cars, just wrong place, wrong time, sliding doors, and they're dead. But they want to put this guy away for murder, which is, kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Again, I think it's another example. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've said it to the prosecution. I've said it to the judge. I think it's a wild example of prosecutorial overreach. There are crimes in the penal code and the vehicle code that address this exact kind of situation where somebody has no criminal record. They're not on the phone. They're not texting. They're not emailing. There's no drugs. There's no alcohol. There's nothing. He's just driving his car. And because he was trying to create some distance between himself and a perceived threat, the speed got out of hand. He lost control of the car, and it's just a tragic accident. And they want to prosecute him. They are prosecuting him for 4 counts of second-degree murder and put him in prison for 60 years to life in prison. So it's just that's my next fight, is trying to save this young man's life.
Are you prepared for that? Have you started to prepare
Oh
for
yeah.
that?
Yeah. We've been preparing for months and months and months for this trial, and it's coming up in the next couple of weeks. But yes, we are fully prepared to battle that.
And that, of course, is another the criminal trial. So you will be it will be done in a matter of weeks, right? I mean, maybe in the month of September.
I expect that the trial will be about 3 weeks. Maybe it'll go into the 4th week, something like that. But yeah, most of September will be Fraser's case.
All right. Well, we'll be there. We'll be there with you for sure.
Thanks, man.
Any final thoughts here on as we
No,
take a look at this? What are you feeling right now? If you are Kevin Reddington, what do you feel? The chairs are empty. They've gone.
I
They're
think
deliberating.
what he's probably thinking right now is he's done everything that he can possibly do. He's met the challenge. He's protected this young lady in a way that she deserved to be protected. He's fought very hard for her. I don't believe that the prosecution has met their burden, nowhere close to their burden. There's no question about what happened. It's why it happened. And the prosecution has a very high burden to get into the mind of Lindsay Clancy and to prove that she wanted to and did deliberately and with premeditation murder those 3 children for no other reason than she just felt like it that day. Just felt like it. That is a very, very hard pill to swallow. It's going to be a hard pill to swallow for the jurors. They are going to, I believe, they're going to gravitate toward Kevin's point, which is nobody would do this if they were not in the clutches of a psychotic break. Nobody would do this. There's no indication whatsoever that she had anything except deep, abiding love for those 3 little kids. and she mourns their loss. If she's out of the psychosis at this point, which I suspect she is medicated and probably getting the help that she needs now, at least some of it. She mourns their loss every single day, every second of every single day. I don't think the jurors are going to be compelled to convict her of murder.
There it is on the screen, Allan. Jury is now deliberating, and this could be, the rest of the day. It could be all day tomorrow. Maybe they come back Monday, but, I guess this is what we're going to look at on screen until it comes back. And I mean, I can't imagine this is really that quick. I would expect at least 24 hours to 48. I mean,
I would think that. I think a safe bet is the verdict's going to be next week sometime, probably Monday or Tuesday, I would guess. I don't think that they'll have a verdict by tomorrow. It's most of today will be, what time is it there? Was it 1 o'clock? They're gonna just set the tone for what happens inside the deliberation room, how the foreperson is going to coordinate the deliberation process. They'll probably ask for certain evidence. They're going to be gathering evidence in. If there's electronic evidence, like videos and things of that nature, they're going to ask for a computer. They're going to have to figure out the mechanism and the logistics of putting all that together. Today is going to be a lot of logistics, and I think tomorrow we'll start, maybe late today, early tomorrow, we'll start the robust discussions about the actual charges and the elements within the charges. And I just can't imagine that they would have a verdict by tomorrow, but could be. Obviously, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. But if I was a betting man, I'd say it's probably going to be Monday, maybe Tuesday.
Well, I can't thank you enough for your time, your insight. There is nobody better, and we really appreciate it, dude. Thank you. What great analysis, and you took us right there. You took us to the front row, and that's
Billy.
what it's all about.
Always nice to see you, brother.
I love you. There's the great Allan Jackson, folks, breaking it down. That is lucky. He was great to respond, and timing worked out perfectly. The man, of course, a great dad, drops his daughter off, and then he gets to the office, and he's like, okay, let's do it. But he's got like 7 ears, Allan Jackson. He's got 1 ear on the trial, 1 ear on the thing. Nothing gets past him. Make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks for being with us. Oh, he's still there listening in. Hit subscribe. On Hot Mics with Billy Bush, we got a whole new big season coming up starting September 14th, actually right when Allan gets going in his trial. So we'll be with him every step of the way as we launch on a whole new platform with a whole new operation. It's very exciting. Allan, I love you. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
See ya. There he goes. And thank you, folks. The jury's deliberating, and when it's over, we'll all get together and talk about it as we do. Bless you.
Doing me, right?
Another compliment. There she is.